child, I'll say. You grew up with that reference. Maybe we should have made, was it that left or that right? I think it was, you should have made that left at Albuquerque. Bugs Bunny used to always say that. Yeah. So I'm actually in Albuquerque. I think we went through Albuquerque last year, but then didn't go in Albuquerque. So we're in Albuquerque this year. Praise Yah. Alrighty. I think we got everybody up here. Cool. Let's get into it. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman, and aman again. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao. Namaste. Osai Anakitabuya. Ohio, I see you. Namaste, Manut, Habarigani, Akwaba, Etesen, Jambo Mimini Kofi, Nina Faraku Katana Wewe, Bakwartav, Shalom Yashlel, Tida, Kwam, Achiat, at Zion. And I Kofi, the servants of Christ, Mashalom. Hey, hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Whether you're joining us on the podcast, you're joining us on YouTube, you're going to join us later on Facebook, you're joining us on TikTok. We appreciate your presence. Whether you're joining us live or joining us later on, we appreciate your presence so very much. And thank you for being on. Okay, Alf, no problem. Thank you so much for doing that. If that's all you got to be a little better with that, right? That's some stuff that, even the kindergartners are all right with. But we appreciate you, though. Appreciate you so much. And it's interesting you use the character as Alf to be your representation and then say it about somebody else. But regardless, thank you for being on. So here we are, right, in a situation. To the moderators, I bow down to you. Thank you so much to the ministerial staff, to SOC, to Lottie Dai, everybody. We appreciate you so much. And we thank you guys for being on this rising. Amen. So we're going to continue the series that we've been in. Once again, we give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. We're thankful and grateful for her and her life. Oh, by the way, I will try to see if I can look and make sure everybody got the information. But by the way, classes do start tonight. It is the 28th. So if you're signed up, especially for Sovereignty 1 and Sovereignty 2 at 8:30 p.m. At 8:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, we will start our Shabbat service. Let me get this together. Sorry, so many things we do here. At 8:30 p.m. Eastern New York time tonight, we will start Sovereignty 1. At 9:15 p.m. Eastern New York time tonight, we will start Sovereignty 2. And because we're doing our classes for this next quarter, these next 2 months, we will make sure, if you're going to be joining us, be ready that our, how do we want to say this? Forgive me, y'all, what we're doing. I guess for the next quarter, our live sessions in the evening will be at 7:45 p.m. Eastern New York time, not 8. So we can have a little length to it before we get ready to jump into classes. All right. So just to give you guys a heads up, Patreon, it is what it is right now. Still, whenever we can put a video up, we don't have a time for that specifically, but feel free to catch up on certain things that we put on Patreon only and different things to check in with us, especially as we're doing our trip. All right. So let's go ahead and get into today's word. But before we do so, we're getting back into our series, Who's Listening? We started it yesterday. You can find all these things recorded on our YouTube channel, and we thank you for supporting there as well. But let's go ahead and say hello to everybody real quick, and let's get into today. So how you doing, Sister Nadine? How you doing, Sister Joy? How you doing, Cream 81? MIT Steven, Sister Deborah, Money Green, Sister Nadine, Sister Judith, Romac, Sean. We appreciate you guys. Come on. Let's see. Latasha. Hello. Teresa. Overcomer. I got to remember Overcomer and Teresa, the same person, to be messing with me, I believe. Or is it the same person? See, now I might be confused. I think it is. How you doing, Praise Y'all? How you doing, Sister Sherry? How you doing, Isha? How you doing, Sister Sage? How you doing, Sister Monica? Everybody who's coming on. If I miss your day and charge it to my head, not to my heart, How you doing? This is Makia or Machia. Not sure which one. I forgot. Machia Tamid, Cheryl's, everybody. Truth, Brother Allen, Sis Toya, Sis Beverly. If I miss you, just forgive me. I'm trying. Amen. Praise you. How you doing, Sister Irena? Thank you for your help, by the way, on the live session earlier. Divine, Sister Renee, Minister Tamara, everybody, Lottie Dottie, everybody. Thank you for being on. Appreciate you. All righty. So let's get into today. We're talking about the series Who's Listening? And in this series today, we're going to talk about righteousness versus right. Right. Going back into something that we talk about quite often. We haven't really brought it up in an extreme manner for a while. However, in this series, we have to bring it back up. Righteousness versus right. And as I said, I'm just being honest with you. If you listened to us yesterday, even though we were brief and we didn't go as long as we do on Sundays, prayerfully you caught that this is going to be a little different. And so, this for educational purposes only, trigger warning, all that stuff, right? But we got to get to the heart of the matter. Who's listening? When you're presenting something to others, who's listening to you? When you're presenting your life to others, who's listening? Who's watching? When you're presenting your theory to your business, laws, principles, governance to people, right? When you're presenting yourself, your kaddis or charisma, who you are, or the kaddis of the Most High, who He is, right? That's what His grace is, by the way. Grace is His kaddis, who He is. So when you're presenting this stuff, who's listening? We have to know who we're talking to, right? How you doing, Infinite and me? How you doing, Yehuda? How you doing, Original G? How you doing, Sister Betty? Praise y'all. I think I saw your text come through about that you got my message. How you doing, Black Steel? So here we go. Who's listening? And today we're focusing on righteousness versus right. I say this quite often, right? I'm not trying to be right. I'm trying to be righteous. My goal is not to come before you and make sure that I sound like I am the most right individual, as we talked about with Paul the other day, where Paul said, look, man, you guys aren't ready for the works yet. So I'm not worried about making sure that you see me doing all this extreme works and stuff. Those things will come. Those things will follow. I'm not even worried about you doing the works right now. I need you to at least get the faith. See, like people don't like when Paul's saying that, but Paul is not talking to Israelites a lot of times. And even when he speaks specifically about law, but then he goes back to realizing, hey, I'm talking to Corinth right now. I'm talking to the people who are Galatians right now. I'm talking to the people of Ephesus right now. I'm talking to Romans right now. I'm talking to Gentiles right now. I'm talking to those who are heathens. I'm talking to this and that or whatever, right? But he knows his audience. And a lot of times we forget that we have to even read the Bible in context. Who is it talking to? How you doing, Gus Sissy? How you doing, Sister Deborah? Right? How you doing, Sister Carla? How you doing, Spiritual Prospect? How you doing, Charles? I must be in a position where I realize what's going on as far as what Yah has for me and who He has me to talk to. Who's listening? The person who's listening to be right is not going to listen the same way as the person who's trying to be righteous. Now, sometimes one and two, they can be one and the same. How you doing, off grid? But let's be honest. Most people who are listening to be right are not hearing what the Spirit has to say anyway. They are listening to try and tell you where you're wrong. And many people are actually trying to be right and don't want righteousness. See, righteousness is a word that means right, lawful standing. That means we have to also look at what is tabah, or what some of you might still declare is good. We have to look at what's tabah, what is moral, what is at a higher level, what is consistent with a standard higher than us, that we might in all our getting get understanding. What is constitutional? Because if it's tabah, that it must come from Yahweh. If it's Yahweh Tabah or Tabah Yahweh, right, then it must be His standard. It must be His righteousness. It must be His right, lawful standing. If we're going to be in Maya Sapache, or as people say, Mia Sapak, or whatever people are saying, whichever way you're saying the word, when we're talking about our family, well, in our family and our familia, right, in familia, we must be the same. And so, exactly, Sister Betty, even if somebody's trying to listen, if they're not trying to be righteous, but they're trying to be right, they're not listening, no matter if they have a righteous intent or not. How you doing, MIT Tracy? There's this old saying that says what? That the road to hell is paved with what? With righteous intentions. But your intentions don't mean anything if righteousness is not your goal. And so when I'm talking to somebody, I have to realize sometimes I'm talking to the person who is trying to be right, and they might even be right. There's a way that seems right to a man, Sometimes you might have to agree with them. Okay, you be right. You believe what you believe, and I believe what I believe. Sometimes you might have to realize that person's right, but they still want to listen. So you might have to try and figure out a way to be able to give a parable. Okay, in your culture, this is how you do da. Right. So in natural law, in universal law, in kingdom law, in maritime law, and common law, this is what they would do. So then, if that's what you believe in here, why don't you believe it in another place? Right? There's a person who's trying to be right but not righteous. So this is why we bring up evolution all the time. People will talk about evolution, or let me start another place. See, watch this. Moderators, I love y'all. I keep putting stress on y'all sometimes, but I love y'all because you guys help me out so much. Watch this. You ready? There is a person who will tell you that racism doesn't exist. And if you say it does, that you're the racist. But somehow the racism doesn't exist. But if you say so, you're the racist that's instituting racism. But then there's also somebody will say that there's no such thing as white privilege. You probably heard people have these arguments before. How you doing, Darius? And how you doing? I am Kingdom Emmanuel. Thanks for being on. Now I want you to think about that. There's somebody that will say that racism doesn't exist, right? That only racists will bring up racism. So they'll tell you that racism is something that they can use only to reverse it, right? You're the reverse racist. You're a reverse misogynist. If you say anything about misogyny, then you must be a misandrist, right? We're dealing with people who are not even able to escape cognitive dissonance. They are totally culpable in cognitive dissonance concerning their own conversation, demeanor, and argument due to the fact that they are not able to really get out of Dunning-Kruger effect and realize that they are not apologetically sound. Their doctrine is something that we should steer away from and steer clear of because they are still trying to make sense of something that is nonsensical, even according to their own argument. How you doing? All praise to the Most High. For example, how do you tell me, now watch this, how can you tell me? See, this is when we got to realize people are trying to be right, not righteous. You're not even trying to deal with morality. How can you tell me that there's no such thing as white privilege? And I get it. White privilege, you can say, is theoretical. At least give me that, right? White privilege is theoretical, right? So you say, and the argument that people will give you is, and I'm not here to just talk about black and white all day. I'm just giving you an example that we all are aware of. I'm sorry, you said what? Like the white man who murdered the 3 black people over the weekend? Yeah. And it's just a copy of other people who've done the same. And, we saw it happen in the church. We saw it happen when people murdered the person by running over him with the car. We saw it with the people in Buffalo you're talking about. We see it a lot, right? We just saw it recently with the people in the store, in another store, another place. Matter of fact, in the same place that LGBTQ plus people were offed, right? Jacksonville. This time Ron DeSantis was smarter than what he was last time, and he just like, yeah, it was heinous, it was bad, because they can't lie about it. We got the manifesto at this point. Like, what you gonna do about it? But watch this. People will say there's no such thing as white privilege, but see, that's not a righteous argument. See, being right means that you're just trying to win. I'm not trying to win. I want facts and I want context. I don't want context without facts. I don't want facts without context. Yeah, they have a lot of bad days, right? How you doing, Joy Boy? How you doing, Sweet Sauce? But watch this. If there's no such thing as white privilege, then you have to answer me something. Was there ever something called the white man's burden? See, people are talking about I go through tough times. Billionaires go through tough times. Are you going to say that there's no such thing as classism? There's no such thing as elites mistreating people that are poor because billionaires go through bad times? Stop it. I'm not here to tell you you've never gone through a bad time. If somebody has cancer, whether they're white or black, cancer gonna hit your body, right? Whether you have, whether you're rich or you're poor, if you get your heart broken, you're gonna deal with heartbreak. When somebody says white privilege, they're not talking about the fact that you can't go through something. They're talking about you live in a system. Racism is a system. By definition, ISM on any word makes it a system. Race was originally a competition, and it only became a system based off of what? Off of certain people getting things like, once again, the white man's burden. This is something you can look up easily. This is a doctrine. People think doctrines have to be spiritual. And by the way, it is spiritual anyways. But People think doctrines have to be spiritual. How you doing, Sister Shima? Welcome back, Sister Sister Nadine. Sorry, would you say, Sister Betty? Yeah, gave the right to conquer, right? So if I'm dealing with something called the white man's burden basically says, man, you know what? God, we don't worship God, we worship Elohim, but nevertheless, they say God required that we would be, it's not our fault. Matter of fact, we don't like what we're going to have to do, but it's not about what we like. We have been commissioned by God. We have been commanded by God. That's what they say, that we are supposed to make sure that everything looks like us in our culture, whatever that is, because even they had different cultures. But ultimately, the people who would rule over them said, this is what white culture is. Matter of fact, remember, the color white was never a color until recent times. The color white just used to mean clear or bright or see-through. Eventually started trying to even change the color white to somewhat mean black, and try to change black into looking like it mean white, and trying to say it means bleached and all that stuff. They tried to change it in the dictionary, but before, there was a time where if you said white, somebody was looking for something absent of color. And if you have melanin, which is everybody that lives, then you cannot be white, because you cannot live without something that causes you to have some type of color. Cauliflower has to have some type of chlorophyll. It just doesn't have much, but it still has to have something in it that can produce green, which means it has to have some type of magnesium in it. All right. It cannot exist without something that feeds off of something. See, but once again, we're not trying to be right. Even people that believe in evolution don't want to admit to you that evolution, when you look at Charles Darwin, his famous book is not just called The Theory of Evolution, right? Or it's not just called, The Origin of Species. The full title of his book is The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the survival of favored races and the struggle for life. Which means that you can't even talk about evolution without talking about race, and which races are favored in this struggle called evolution. Right? Read the book. Everybody talks about this, but nobody reads it. How you doing, Patrick? How you doing, Divine Sunshine? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Authentic Goddess? Thanks for being part of the community. Everybody talks about this stuff, but nobody wants to have honest dialogue about it. Like, we have to admit that the white man's burden was a thing, where they literally said, we don't really want to mistreat everybody, but God has told us that everybody must look like us. Look at the Crusades. I believe in the Bible, the original Bible, not the one that's been changed, and the slave Bible and words being changed and certain things that can't be interpreted being there. I believe that you should make sure you learn things in its original intent and by the people who actually wrote it. But even when you read your Bible, right? They read the Bible and they are quick to try and tell you that the Bible is something. They used it. As much as I love the Bible, they use the Bible to manipulate it, to be able to tell you that it was all right for them to go on the Crusades. What was the Crusades about? The Crusades was not just about representing Christianity. The Crusades was that you had a bunch of people that were under the Pope. The Pope is supposed to be the vicar. He's supposed to be Christ on earth. He's supposed to be the physical representation of the Christ, right? So the Pope is the King of Kings, and all the other kingdoms bow down to him. However, we got a problem. All these kingdoms are fighting each other and offing each other. And the Pope is losing power and losing people. He's got to keep his power in order. So what does he do? He says, hey, those black and brown people over there in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, they are living in what's ours because we are the people of the Bible. This is where this whole thing, as far as Balaam doctrine, Nicolaitan doctrine, comes from. If you're not aware of what those are, if you even look in the Bible, Numbers 22, 23, and 24, there's somebody that's a prophet who's not even an Israelite, but he is a prophet of the Most High. And he's offered gold to try and get Israel off track and speak a word that might mess them up and get them to be away from themselves. He almost loses his life because of it. And you're warned in Revelation chapter 2, verse 14, about that kind of doctrine. You're warned specifically, be aware of it. But for some reason, church folk say that you shouldn't bring that up. Yeah, Crusades only gave people the right to kill in holy right. Yeah. And by the way, if you look at the Crusades, you got to, this stuff that they say is so bad about Muslims, but they uphold the Crusades, stuff like, hey, it's so bad that they tell them that they're going to get 40 virgins and all that stuff. That's what they told them in the Crusades. The Muslims follow suit. But the Crusades started with the Christians saying, if y'all go and fight, it was a bunch of poor people, poor men and women. I don't know what the women were supposed to get out of this. I guess they were just supposed to get to heaven. But poor men and women got behind deacons and knights who had, and forgive my language, so I just want to be frank, had piss poor knowledge and reverence of the word of Yah, but didn't care because they wanted to go over there and get land. They wanted to have people willing to die for them. Matter of fact, the Crusades got really messed up in the beginning for all the people who were fighting from European descent, because it actually was tough for them to come together due to the fact that they started fighting each other about whose bad doctrine was better. So they actually, and then on the way, they actually started fighting over little pieces of land. So you would have them start to work together, kind of, sort of, to take over this castle or to take over this town or to take over this. And then they'd realize, like, oh, I want to keep this. And so they would start fighting each other over who could keep it. So by the time they got to the Crusades, they had already offed each other so much that they basically were going to lose and not get what they came there for. And so the Crusades, that's one of the reasons why it took so long, so many years. If you look at the Crusades, it's over years and years and years. It's because they had so much dissent within themselves. But they had that promise. They had that promise. Their 40 acres and a mule was 40 virgins and a mansion. Even though we know a mansion is an add-on to Yah's house, and it doesn't say anything about you getting 40 virgins, but the Pope told them, if you fight, you'll get 40 virgins. That is the mentality that they had. But it's weird that if a Muslim, so-called Muslim, because they're not true Muslims either, right? Just like there aren't true Christians, or there aren't true people who follow the way. There aren't true Israelites. There aren't true Moors. Sometimes there aren't true, natives, et cetera, as far as how they live and how they operate, right? There also aren't true people who are Muslims who do the same thing. But you get mad at them and use that as an excuse, but you don't talk about how you guys did that in your Bible, using your Bible. How you doing, Auntie Mary? We're on our way. I'm excited. 2 more days, right? Or a day and a half, whatever it is, right? How you doing, Sister Latoya? How you doing, Prince? How you doing, DJ? You said Congo, remember that? How you doing, DB? It just says Dot. I don't know who Dot is. It says somebody followed. Okay, whoever that was. Thanks for being part of the community. I can't see your name. How you doing, Sister Kimberly? And thank y'all for the love. Appreciate it. How you doing, B Little? Right? Like, these are things that we don't want to acknowledge happen, but this is real. Like, this stuff we don't want to acknowledge happen. However, this is very real. We must be honest that these things did happen, and they shape how people think about things today, right? So you can't talk about evolution without talking about the fact that there's something called race, because race is something that used to mean a competition. If I say, even though my son knows about racism, he doesn't really know it by name. He knows that there's people that don't like him because of his hair, because of his skin color, when he's around people that look like him. He even knows there's colorism, but he doesn't know those terms. However, he if I were to come to him and I were to say, hey, let's talk about race, he would say, okay, where are we starting? Because in his mind, race is a competition. How you doing? Who cares? Right? Race is a competition. So in his mind, he thinks that race means on your mark, get set, go. Right? That's in his mind. That's what race is. But race is considered to be animals first, because that's what they started labeling species as, because people like Carl Linnaeus started saying different species of animals are always in competition, therefore they have a race against each other. And then Charles Darwin came and took that to the next level and extended his list. Carl Linnaeus' list was only 4 groups of people, and he said, no, let's extend it and say they all came from different animals. Since they came from different animals, and we believe that different animals actually outlast others, and they're supposed to, due to what? Natural selection. Therefore, we'll name the book. Charles Darwin names his book what? The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the struggle for, or I'm sorry, the survival. Sorry, let me say it again. He calls it the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the fight. Oh wow, let me just pull it up. I got it on here, y'all. I'm sorry, I'm messing up this title. Thought I had it in my memory banks. I just did it earlier, but for some reason I'm having struggle. Let me just go ahead and read it. I could easily just see it. Let me just read it real quick. So you can see for yourself, because people aren't aware of this, once again, because people are trying to be right and not righteous, trying to not figure out what actually took place, or why are we here? What is the context of some of this stuff? We don't care about that stuff, but we should. We should realize it's important that people have messed you up. See, so you learned about evolution and never thought about the fact that the title of the book is The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races and the Struggle for Life. And this was backed up. Charles Darwin was backed up by royalty, by those who said that they're into geology. So geologists believe this, right? And people who are what? Linnaeus, Carl Linnaeus, those who go back into Linnaean doctrine and these types of societies, right? How you doing, Laura? Thanks for being on. So nobody wants to talk about this. How you doing, CDG? But this has to be part of the conversation, right? But once again, people aren't worried about being righteous. They only want to be right. And when you're dealing with somebody who just wants to be right, they will forsake a lot of knowledge. And my people perish for a lack of knowledge. The word knowledge meaning to be intimate with something. My people perish for a lack of knowledge. And it says it's not because you have not been given knowledge, it's because you have rejected it. And because you've rejected it, you must be rejected even to the next 3 to 4 generations. So we have this issue going on. What is the series called? Who's listening? I have to realize there's a lot of people who are listening who are not trying to be righteous, but they're trying to be right. They'll tell me that there can't be any such thing as white privilege, but they won't admit there was something called the white man's burden. Matter of fact, they'll make sure it's not taught in your school, because if it's taught in the school, then that means you have proper context to be able to tell them, well, how in the world is there no white privilege, but there's such thing as white man's burden? And then you'll be able to learn terms. They won't teach you apologetics, which they should, because if I learn apologetics, especially if I'm going to speak or teach, apologetics is key, because apologetics is the art of defending that which I believe. So you can't, when you learn apologetics, you learn simple terms like gaslighting. You're not going to gaslight me. That means you're not going to take, I'm talking about this, and you're going to try to get me to burn up all this time about something else that I'm not talking about. You're going to try to get me to have a straw man argument, right? And use something, I'm talking about this, but you're trying to get me to own something else, and we can do business or do a transaction or have an argument through that rather than what I'm talking about. You're not going to gaslight. You're not going to take me from a place to where I comprehend what I'm talking about. I know that you cannot have a white man's burden. You cannot have the lost cause. You cannot have manifest destiny. You cannot have the doctrine of discovery. You cannot talk about evolution. And by the way, when you talk about evolution and Charles Darwin, then you have to talk about Charles Darwin's little cousin who loved what Charles Darwin did and then wrote the book on what you guys now call eugenics. I can't talk about those 6 things and then act like there's never been a system in place, right? Including chattel slavery and others. And by the way, it's something that not only affects just Black people. See, we had to be put in what you call Black people. You had to be put in a certain position to make it work. But this affected everybody, because it even tells you into stuff like the Willie Lynch letter that now they want to tell you to not listen to. But it tells you straight up, somebody named Willie Lynch, 1712, Christmas Day, December 25th, 1712, during a Christmas service when they were getting ready to have a picnic, because that's when you would go outside and pick an N-word and hang them. And then you would burn them, and then you would sell certain parts of the body so that you could raise money for the assembly, and people could take those parts home and be able to put them on their mantle, so that when people would come, just like you and I, well, I don't really have a television, but for those of you who still watch television and stuff, and you got your television up in your house, right, and you sit down and you watch it, well, they would have a mantle over the fireplace, and they would put that piece of an N-word there, so that they'd be able to say, man, you know what? Look at that day. You remember that day we were there? You remember that day we saw that happen? But see, the person who's trying to just be right says, no, that stuff doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't affect anything. That stuff happened a long time ago. But here's how wild this is. People act like stuff happened a long time ago. In 2021, they found Black and brown people in Georgia in chattel slavery. 2021. You can turn on Netflix, something that exists today, and you can look at people who speak of their experience of still being in chattel slavery and not knowing who Martin Luther King Jr. was in the 1960s and the 1970s. Oh, and should you forget, the 13th Amendment did not get rid of slavery. It just said we no longer have to we can no longer enslave you just because of the color of your skin. We need to arrest you. And all of a sudden, here comes the private prison industrial complex and the school to prison pipeline. Right? I just gave the example yesterday of Dr. Lai Africa, who passed away about 2-3 years ago now. And he gives a story of how and he was in his 80s. He talks about how his grandmother, so that's only 2 generations removed from him, he talked to this person, how he talked to his grandmother who was a slave. People say that's not possible. Yes, it is. Somebody just has to have babies far enough from each other, right? And a lot of us keep getting sicker and sicker, and so women are losing the ability to have babies later and later. But women used to have babies in their 50s and 60s, right? That's not something that's impossible. If somebody's eating right and eating correct, it's not. A lot of women don't want babies in their 60s, but it's not something that's impossible, right? To have a baby in your 50s, 60s, right? So all you need is enough generations and you hit the mark pretty easily, especially if you have somebody that's 80 years old. We'll go 40, 50 years before him, 40, 50 years before them. Right? He didn't even make it to 2020, or maybe he did make it to 2020, not sure, but let's just say he made it 2020, do the math. Go back 80 years, that's 1940s, right? Go 50 years before him. What do you got? Right? That's 1890s. Right? Go 50 years before that. 1860s. Born into slavery. A child raised in it enough to know what's going on and to be affected after the after effects of it as well. Because they didn't just start saying, you know what, we've been enslaving y'all all these years. We're just going to treat you like everything's okay now. 2 days ago, I could use the Casual Killing Act to go ahead and off your children. Today, we're friends. 2 days ago, I could go ahead and take your baby out of your womb, and your baby's not going to make it. Today, I do it because I'm your friend. You know, we need to save your community. Margaret Sanger says we need to abortion. See, people want to do, but once again, we don't have a righteousness versus right conversation. Just because you're right or winning an argument doesn't mean that you're righteous in your endeavors. How you doing, Shabbos? And how you doing, Henry? How you doing? All this come by y'all now? Sorry, what'd you say? Yeah. And how you doing, JP Villick? Thanks for being part of the community. So you hear what I'm saying? And I'm very quick. I'm very quick to let y'all know that not everybody who's white is evil. They had to be taught, and even the ones that became evil, remember, that's part of the programming. You have to teach everybody. You have to teach everybody to be down with this. So everybody has to touch and agree on this foolishness. But people aren't trying to be righteous. They just want to be right. So when I'm talking to certain people, I have to realize, see, that those that are hungry and thirsty after righteousness, they shall be filled. Do not blame yourself if somebody walks away from a full course meal that you've given and they are still hungry. Especially if you told them that they can eat whatever they want off the table. And they decide to do the whole, well, I'm not really hungry. I'm trying to lose weight or this and that. Okay, fine. Well, that's cool. But don't be upset when I presented the meal and you're walking away and you're still hungry. Did I say hello, Michelle? If I didn't, please forgive me. Right? Don't be upset with me, though. And I provide this full course meal, and it's this 7-course meal, and you walk away and you're talking about you still hungry. How you doing, Cheryl? Yeah, those that hunger and thirst for righteousness, they shall be filled. If they really want righteousness, if they really want morality, if they really want proper context, if they really want truth, they come get it. And how you doing, Tony? And watch this. May I say this as well? I'm not going to change. Look, I'm not going to say I can't change my teaching style. I'm not saying I shouldn't be empathetic. I'm not saying that I shouldn't take time out to know who you are and to glean from you. And I can learn from you like you can learn from me, even if we have different cultures and have different mindsets and don't agree and yada yada yada. Right? All that. I'm with you. I'm cool with that. Right? But if you're going to eat at my table, that suggests you're going to eat at my house. And if you're going to eat at my house, that means that you're going to eat according to our standards. If I eat at your house, I might be aware that maybe you ain't going to clean the chicken. You just might not. Okay. Right? If I eat at your house, maybe you're not going to use the seasons that we use. Not mad at it. If I eat at your house, maybe you're going to use chopsticks instead of forks. If I eat at your house, maybe you use your right hand to eat. No matter what you're eating, doesn't matter if it's hot, liquid, whatever. Maybe you dip your hand all the way in. If you wash your hands, maybe you dip your hands in the bowl and you don't go to the sink. If I go to your house and I have to ask to be excused from the table and I go to use the restroom, I might see that it, depending on your culture, you'd be surprised. Some cultures, you got a hole in the ground, and that's what you got. Some cultures, you got a what looks like a urinal that's flat. Some cultures, you're going to have a toilet. Sometimes you might have a bidet next to the toilet, whatever the case might be, right? But when I come into your house, if I'm eating from your table, it suggests that I'm eating from your culture. It's only righteous that I would realize that. You said, Pastor, please advise, at what point are we as Black people to fight back, or do we just continue to sit back as they continue to offer us? Has become increasingly common. Once again, even when we use the term fight back, I'm always about being led. But once again, from a cultural perspective in anything, right? Even those of you who are talking about it's time to go to war because we're at war. And by the way, I believe we're at war, whether people want to call it that or not. I still have to say, before we are ready to fight back, what does the army look like? Are people trained to fight back? Everybody ready to throw an actual jab if you need to? If somebody takes the fight to the ground, can you protect yourself? Where are women and children going to be? I know some women can fight and all that, but we're supposed to make sure the women and children are protected. Is somebody ready to say, if stuff really goes down, we got a place we can meet, and we can regroup, we can retreat and regroup and come back stronger? Do we have our own food to feed ourselves? See, once again, I don't believe in segregation, but I don't mind separation, and I don't mind colonization, because the kingdom should colonize anyways, but you should be in the kingdom, right? Instead of dealing with this corporation you're talking about. But then also too, if we're going to, and I'm not talking about you specific, I'm just saying in general. And then also too, right? There has to be some kind of standard. We don't have a standard of living. We don't have a standard of this. We don't, like, who's the general? Who are the generals? Who's the 4 stars? Who's the 3 stars? Who's the 2 stars? Who's the 1 star? Right? Like, what happens is we want to fight, right? Fighting by yourself will get it done. Maybe one, maybe you strong, maybe you fast, maybe you can hit 10, 20 of them. Maybe you can fight 1,000 people all by yourself. Who knows? But you're going to be fighting more than thousands. And one of the things we haven't done is prepared. Watch this. Where are the places that we've gentrified? How you doing, MIT Jenny? Where are the places that we've gentrified? Real talk. Like, gentrification is fine. We get mad at it, but you mad at it because you haven't done it. And you haven't done it because you don't have a culture to use to gentrify. So even in your culture, when you went to, we talked about this yesterday, when you went to grandmama in them house, grandmama had Martin Luther King Jr. on the wall, white Jesus on the wall, maybe had the president of the United States on the wall, and she had a Bible that was open to a verse that she had never touched and wouldn't move, and it had so much dust and everything, you could write it and nobody even cared. Nobody would even think twice to look, because that scripture just stays on that scripture, right? We had nothing, and I'm not saying nobody did. I'm just saying oftentimes, so we be honest, right? You didn't see anything as far as representing you. You didn't see something with the red, the black, and the green. You didn't see anything that was, yellow, green, and red in a lot of places, even though this was our people. We didn't see stuff where it looked like the Confederate flag, but it was really the flag of the Iroquois nation, because that's who some of us are. You said, not your grandma? That's great. Awesome, right? Awesome. But for many of us, that's what you saw. Not just in the United States of America. See, we also forget about this. See, because you fighting a worldwide thing. Now, at some point, we got to have little pockets and get our pockets together. But we haven't even invested in each other and in the culture of one another. We haven't even invested in the culture for one another. Right? For example, like, this is stuff that, and watch this. So I'm just saying, as far as that, see, this is something that's going to take some time, right? We need to be willing to protect ourselves. Second Amendment is for you too. Whether you're a non-citizen national or U.S. citizen, the Second Amendment works for you too. So I'm not saying don't protect yourself, but learn how to protect yourself. Form militias. You're allowed by law to form a militia to make sure that you protect people from what's going on from the police. And the police have no right to be able to tell you that you can't make sure that you guys protect yourselves if you're doing so according to the law. You said this was a one-man job, though? Well, okay. So if you're talking about you're talking about this one person who shot somebody. I mean, hey, watch this. How many people were walking around with a gun? And how many people made sure that they were trained in that area and knew each other to say, hey, like this is what we do. We meet up on a regular basis. Like we have some neighborhood watches and stuff like that, but think about it. We don't have a militia form. So you're saying this is a one-man job. Sure. So this was a one-man job. Somebody did this. There's going to be times where you're not going to see everything happening. That's what happens at war. Sometimes you can't prevent everybody from going. One person might get shot. That's why people in the front line, it's tough, but they have a duty sometimes to get ripped apart by bullets. Normandy, D-Day. A bunch of people knew they were not going to make it, but they kept pressing forward because the goal was not to make sure everybody made it, was to make sure that you won the war. Now, once again, though, so even if you're talking about this one person, nobody was prepared at all. Nobody said, hey, if this guy starts shooting, I got that thing on me. I'm trained correctly. I've gotten together with people, right, and stuff like that, and we've learned, right, that hey, okay, somebody got something, we need to have something as well. We should be more. And forgive me, I'm not, for those of you who think that I'm trying to say, go out. I'm not saying go out and be ready to off somebody. What I'm saying is be ready to protect yourself and protect your people. Even if I'm in a state where I can't get my stuff together fast enough, like I got something on me at all times, even if it's a super high powered air rifle, that's lawful. It's got to be lawful, right? But I'll make sure I have something because something might go down and my family might need it. Right. So I'm always on the lookout. But we've been taught most people are trying to get rid of weapons. But you as a people, you've had weapons used against you for so long, it doesn't even make sense for us to not protect ourselves at all, or at least make sure we have something in place. But that's what I'm saying. It's about community. One of the things it's easy for the person, and I'm gonna try and get back on track. I'm trying to deal with righteousness versus right. But I know we'll get to a place where we're like, we got to fight back. We got to fight back. We got to fight back. Sure. Okay. So what does fight back entail? Are we saying we got to go and they did a one-man job to us, so we're going to do a one-man job to them? Because that ain't going to get you nothing, especially if you're the minority here and you don't have other people that are part of the diaspora that are ready to come over and back you up. Right. However, we can do something as simple as, you know what, let's get ourselves in order. Let's make sure that we live near each other. Let's make sure we're prepared for stuff like that. But ultimately, at some point, you got to go and leave and gentrify. And if people who are like-minded want to be grafted into what you're doing, check them and make sure that they live righteous and make sure that they're living by the same thing. And they might have to prove themselves, like we have to prove ourselves living in their neighborhoods, but we need to put something for ourselves. The problem is not so much that you don't have a heart to fight. A lot of people have a heart to fight, but if you fight a losing battle, then that's not proper war tactics. That doesn't hit the art of war at all. Whether you're talking about Sun Tzu's art of war, whether you're talking about how Shaka did it, whether you want to talk about how Nat Turner did it. Matter of fact, it's interesting. We talk about Nat Turner. We don't talk about the Seminole Wars, or we don't talk about the Gullah Wars, which are really the same thing. The Gullah Geechee Wars and the Seminole Wars are the same thing. And they had a mentality. They had a certain thing together. They even had people who were willing to fight with them, even though the Spanish had made them slaves, but the Spanish allowed slavery to go away so that they could have a bunch of people come down with them, right, and fight with them. And that's how we even got ourselves started, or at least they started allowing us. They started saying, hey, if you come down here and you'll fight on behalf of the Spanish crown, y'all can be free. And then all of a sudden we started getting up with other natives, and we started getting with other Africans who were escaping, and we became stronger. And then you get to people like John Horse, who literally said, okay, we'll mobilize and we'll move all the way over to like Oklahoma. And when they come after us again, no problem. We'll mobilize again. We'll go to Mexico. Who did we go to Mexico with? In Mexico, we had brethren who, because remember, the second president of Mexico is a brother. Right, is a Negro, is a black man, has Negroid features, is a Moor, whatever you want to call him, right? And so he So they go to Mexico, and John Horst becomes a general in Mexico. And Mexicans, because there's a lot of matter of fact, there's more Afro Mexicans than there are African Americans, if you believe in such terms. So he goes over there, becomes a general. They actually give the Seminoles land and give them prestige, which means now that basically we consider the Mexican African, right, or Mexican native to be the same as the Seminole African or the Seminole native. Right? There has to be a point to where we come together and we have something on point. Right now, though, we don't have that. We're not training. We're not saying let's get together. We're not saying, hey, let's work on our rifle stuff. Let's work on how we determine this, and let's get together, and not just ultimately so we can go ahead and have a nice neighborhood, but still put all our money and dollars into everything else. Where's our dollar going? Where's your neighborhood to where your dollar has to circle around it? That's why they have all these things and laws and stuff like that. And IRS, part of it is to make sure that you don't have the stuff to bring together. That's why you have to know law and even know what laws are there as far as what taxes you do and don't have to pay. We don't have something that goes around, right? So we have something that we want to do in righteous intent. We need to fight back, but we're more concerned about because it's right. But is it righteous for me? I don't mind, right? I'm somewhat a general. I don't know if I'm a 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star, but I recognize that I have some say-so over people's lives. And I could say, let's go ahead and fight. And there's a lot of people that would say, let's fight. Problem is, though, is that if I say let's fight, but I don't got no weapons. Remember, the George Washington them almost lost because they started eating their boots. They didn't have no food. Now we know how to forage and stuff, but I'm just saying they didn't even have food. They didn't have gear. They didn't have boots. It was the winter time, and they were about to freeze. George Washington also got rid of the slaves because he was worried that the slaves would want freedom. So he got rid of a bunch of his manpower. So it's wrong for me to put people in harm's way and say, let's go get them. That's why Malcolm X was quick to tell us that every one of us should protect ourselves. Every man should protect his family. And they asked him, even after he made his pilgrimage to Mecca, they were like, Malcolm, when are you going to put down your guns? When are you going to put down your guns? He said, when you tell your people to stop shooting my people, he said, then I'll tell my people to put down their guns. But we still have to make sure that this thing is planned out. And how you doing, Jose Rodriguez? How you doing? Yeah, you have to prepare for the repercussion. Yeah, because once we attack, you don't think there's an attack coming back? See, so that's why I'm saying we have to have a system. See, watch this. Here's something that we don't want to talk about even this thing. I guess we'll just sit here today because like I said, I know there's going to be some uncomfortable conversations. This was not necessarily my intent to stay here, but hey, since we're here, let's sit here. A lot of our best, you said an insurgent rebellion on U.S. soil will only happen with aid of foreigners, foreign invaders not conspiring. Possibly, right? But one of the best things you can do is just get your land together, have your own stuff, and get your items, and make sure that you make it very plain that you don't really care about the government. You just want to have your own. That's when people leave you alone. You know that, right? Like when you're still trying to do business. Say what you will about Tulsa. Tulsa was still trying to do business with them. They're still allowed on your land, all that stuff like that. Tulsa should have just said, we're doing our own thing. Don't nobody need to know where we are. Don't nobody need to listen. See, but people don't want to be isolationist. Matter of fact, they try to tell you being an isolationist is wrong. But, you don't want to be so isolated that you don't know what's going on. However, you have every right to make sure you sow into yourself first. And we don't do that. And we don't want to talk about this, but for real, the best times for us as a people, you look throughout the annals of his story or even our story, the best times for us as a people is not integrated. It's either when we had our own kingdoms, or what you call kingdoms, right? When we had our own domain, which kings, or even our royal persuasion of our sisters, our Aisha and those who would govern, our pharaohs, male or female, who would govern. We did really well under that, and we also did very well when we were segregated. When integration happened, your businesses went away because the white man's ice tastes better, or it's colder, however the saying goes. How you doing, Brother TJ? How you doing, Brother Jeremy? How you doing, Sonia? So I'm just So we're getting to this thing where we're putting the cart before the horse. If you can't feed the army is only going to survive as long as you can feed them. If you have no bullets in the gun, you can have the best gun all day, but once you run out of bullets, if you got a gun that can shoot 100 bullets a second, and all you have is 200 bullets, you can do a lot of damage in 2 seconds. But after 2 seconds is up, what you going to do? There has to be something. Once again, your enemy, no matter what enemy you want to talk about, your enemy is planning things hundreds of years in advance. And here we are talking about we need to fight today. Yeah, fight today for a battle that's about your eternal soul. Don't forget that piece. You see, when we're having conversation, right? Who's listening to us? See, people don't listen to us a lot. Dr. Miles Monroe taught us this. People don't listen to us a lot as a diaspora because they know we don't plan ahead. Dr. Miles Monroe, great teacher, respected all over the world in many different political, as far as many different types of political affiliations, and people who are in governance in many different countries all over the globe or all over the world, depending on what you believe, right? And Dr. Miles Monroe basically said that he had a conversation with somebody that was LGBTQ plus. And so he was talking about what was going to happen and all this stuff and this and that. And the person, kind of laughed at him. The person kind of laughed at him and was like, we're not worried about Christians. We're not worried about people who follow the Bible. And he was kind of astonished. And he kind of felt disrespected. But he was like, let me get past the disrespect. Let me listen to what this person is saying. And the person said, yeah, we don't worry about y'all. He said, do you not realize that we've got a plan for 200 years in advance? Like, we're not thinking about, you're thinking about like what's going to happen today. And you guys are worried about what's going to happen today. And you're seeing this in school and blah, blah. He said, we're thinking 200 years down the road. This was in the Bahamas, by the way. Right. But they do this everywhere. Like have you ever thought about the fact that in the 1960s and 70s, when people were telling our people that our men would be wearing dresses, and I'm not here to try to even argue, should we treat them like human beings, blah, blah. You should treat everybody like a human being. Hear the context of the conversation, right? As far as being ready for vision down the road. There were people who used to scoff at brothers and sisters who would come out and tell you, because of this and because of that and blah, blah, that there's going to be a time where brothers are going to be wearing dresses. And people said, oh, that's weird. No, that would never happen. Yada, yada, yada. That's what people said. No, that'll never happen. What are you talking about? How could you even say such a thing? There's going to be brothers wearing dresses and blah, blah. Right. And now, if you see it, even if you don't like it, you don't think twice about that. Matter of fact, a lot of times you don't think twice about it until your baby asks you a question about it. You're just like, oh, okay, whatever. I got to, okay. And you just go and do what you do because you're so used to saying it. And you're not thinking to yourself, there was a plan in place for it to be so commonplace for you to see that now when somebody says something about it, we don't even think about how commonplace it's become to ensure that if somebody says, hey, man, what's up with this, that we tear them down. It's commonplace to tear it down, even though these people are not even, and I don't even say, let me say, because they're not a nation, right, within themselves. But, these persons, whether you agree with what they're doing or not, right, these human beings, when they say that you watch, like it's becoming so commonplace. It's not righteousness. It's not about morality. It's not about culture anymore, right? It's become so commonplace that now people will say stuff that doesn't even make sense, and you just go with it once again because people aren't trying to be righteous; they're trying to be right. You don't want to get in trouble. You don't want to be the person that gets ostracized. You don't want to be the person that doesn't fit in. Yeah, it's become a norm. How you doing, Sister Marcia? Right, Sister Chambers. It's become the norm, and so you don't want to admit that. Like, man, I know I'm just not going to say anything about it because I don't know who's listening. I don't want somebody to tear down my, 5 years from now, if I mess up and I say the wrong thing, somebody might shut down my whole YouTube channel. Sometimes somebody might shut down my TikTok channel. It's happened to me. Once it happens to you 3, 4, 5 times, you're just like, okay, it is what it is. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Obviously, I'm doing something righteous if I'm able to keep coming back, right? But a lot of people aren't trying to have that type of conversation. They don't want to admit that, like, yeah, there's a lot of people that are more concerned about being considered to be right than righteous. So somebody will say something, and women, like, watch this. People who will tell you we should not discriminate against women. I want you to hear how much craziness this is. This is foolishness. Now, we don't want to admit it's foolishness, but this is straight foolishness, right? It's a foolish argument. If for no other reason, we can say from an apologetic standpoint, this is foolishness, what I'm about to say, but it exists in our normal daily life, in your verbal lexicon. It exists every day, and it is woven deeply into the fabric of your being. Every day, you'll have somebody that you'll hear people tell you that all women are women, but then when a biological woman says, I feel disrespected, they say, how dare you? You must be somebody who is, how dare you disrespect a woman? Now, you just changed and shifted the narrative to try and say that women are not women anymore, or they're not the only women. You just tried to redefine what a period is. And here you are saying that it's wrong for a woman who has a period, who was ostracized because of her period, who had babies that were ripped out of her body without her permission, who has been they wouldn't even call it sex trafficking, but basically Massa could have just didn't even have to say, hey, you come here, just basically in the middle of the field somewhere, would bend them over and do certain things. And here you are now trying to say that you've gone through the same thing that she's gone through, and you want to try and use intersectionality as the excuse. This is not a righteous argument. It's you trying to be right. You just like what women do. You like how women are presented. You like what it is. You're attracted to women, but don't want to admit it. May I say something? It's going to sound weird to you, right? I'm not sexually attracted to men. Not at all. However, I'm attracted to manhood because I am what I'm attracted to. And that's why, as a masculine spirit, as a masculine being, I attract the feminine being, right? I, as the masculine being, attract the feminine being. I, as the masculine being, attract the feminine being, right? Because I am attracted. Ross says, the feminine being is attracted to what I'm attracted to. So because I'm attracted to manhood, my wife is attracted to me. And because my wife is not attracted sexually to womanhood, to women, but she's attracted to womanhood, I am attracted to her. What you're dealing with a lot of these conversations, we don't want to have a righteous conversation. We keep trying to move the needle, but let's be obedient today. Let's be honest today. Let's do this thing the way we're really supposed to today. You ready? You're having confusing conversation with people who are actually attracted to something and have decided because they're attracted to it, they must become it. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? How you doing? Is it Daya? 1111? I still don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but thanks for being on. Let's be honest, right? I don't like women. I'm attracted to men. So why do you dress like a woman? I mean, if I'm not attracted to women, I wouldn't try to be like that. I'm just, and this is just questions now. This is legit questions. People get mad at you even for questions, but legit question. If you're not attracted to a woman, why is it that you want to have a woman's period? If you're not attracted to a woman, why is it that you wish that you could carry a baby? If you're not attracted to a woman, why is it that you feel like you should even enter into a woman's conversation as far as what she feels biologically, and tell her that just because she goes through it biologically does not mean you cannot go through it biologically? Why would you argue to try and become something that you're not even attracted to? You got to ask yourself a question. Somebody says, well, what if I don't dress like a woman? Okay, why do you try to look for men that dress like women if you're not attracted to a woman? There's something going on to where you're having an issue that we don't want to talk about. We don't want to talk about. It's always interesting. People talk about that they want somebody to talk to. They want life coaching. They want counseling, but you don't want proper psychology. Because if we talk about psychology, the psyche, which is really in Greek, the soul, you can't talk about in psychology. The word psychology means the study or the logic of the soul. A psychologist is one who's proficient in the study of the logic of the soul. So we're going to talk about your soul and what it's tied to, and why your flesh and your spirit are having issues with the tie and the things tied to your soul. Then let's talk about that. But you don't want to talk about that. How you doing, Sister Patricia? And thanks for being part of the community. Is it El Tampis? I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly or not. Thank you for being on, right? And how you doing, Laura? See, we don't want to have honest dialogue, honest conversation. Oh, well, I'm a man and I don't like men that are like men. You like to dominate. You like to rule over. It's a curse that men have. You know that the Bible says that women will pine for the affection. They want the affection of their husbands, of the men, and the men will not give it to them, but they will rule. They will use it to rule over them. Well, when somebody's stuff is out of order and they're feminine, they're looking for anything that they can do to even feel the touch of a man, especially when they haven't had a father in their life or they haven't had real men in their life who are dedicated to showing them the real and true love and touch and nature of a man. And you see that and you try to go ahead and rule it. We're still dealing with biblical principle. Ooh, I know this is touching. I know some people don't want to hear this. Thank you, moderators, in advance. If something crazy starts to happen, I apologize for putting you in this position. And when I say I apologize, I'm just explaining it because it is what it is, right? When you said when the definitions stop mattering, it's a white man's narrative. Trans men don't change what a man is. White men won't let it happen. It's a bunch of he-man, woman hater club stuff. Well, yeah, but even in that, right? Watch this. If you and I have to be careful with my language, and I want you to know once again, I'm not trying to dehumanize. I'm trying to rehumanize. I hope people catch that. I don't even think people know how law works. This is why we always talk about law. See, I got to figure out who's listening, and some of you who are listening don't even care about law. Not just biblical law, natural law, dietary law, common law, universal law, marital law. We don't care about it. But law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. And you've gotten away from so much law that now you become dehumanized. Your humanity is not protected. Somebody thinks that human rights means be whatever you want to be. Because if you can be whatever you want to be, that's not what a human is. A human is in the confines of humanity. What makes me a human doesn't make me a snake. Okay. What makes me a human doesn't make me. You see what I'm saying? Human rights is to protect humanity. This is the reason I've talked about this before. Whether you agree with me or not, that's fine. But I've talked about this before. This is why you had laws, and still there are laws on the books too. But there were laws on the books against sodomy. Nobody cared if a man penetrated a woman's backside or a man penetrated another man's backside. They didn't care. Matter of fact, some people that made the laws did it. Just keeping it in the buck with you, right? Like but nobody cared about that. The reason why they put that in there is because sex is marriage and marriage is sex. That's why. According to law, marriage is not between. Now they're trying to change it, right? But that means you're getting away from protecting humanity, which is why people are getting away from protecting babies, right? Now, babies aren't babies anymore, and they can be fetuses. And even after they're born, they can still, in some places, still be off after they come out the womb or while they're coming out the womb, or even up to 2 years. Some places are now trying to put things in places all over the world where people are trying to put in place, well, even when the baby's 2 years old, if you want to off the baby, you can, right? Because it's not a baby. It's property. It's slave. It's trade. It's property. It's not a human being. I'm trying not to dehumanize. I'm trying to rehumanize. You forgot that Margaret Sanger wanted any Jew and any Black people to make sure that they only had a certain amount of babies because she believed that you did not have the mental faculty to take care of children, because look at your situation that her people helped put you in. And she went to your churches, Balaam doctrine, and she paid pastors and paid preachers, and she went to your schools and paid the teachers all to make sure that they started selling, or not selling, but giving condoms away and stuff like that. That started way back then. It started in your churches. And that's when you get this argument where people bring up stuff. Well, you know, some of the biggest supporters of this was stuff in church, but also look at what happens in our church. Can we be honest for a second? Can we not just have to be right? Let's talk about righteousness. The church is the most hypocritical people when talking about sexuality anyways, because y'all allow so much homosexuality there anyways. You just made sure it was closeted. You didn't care. And look, I told my wife this. Can I be honest? I've told y'all this before. There are people that I listen to musically that I know. Because brother, let's just keep it above. Brothers out there, you know I ain't lying. Brothers and sisters, y'all know to a certain degree, but I'm telling you as a brother, as a man, let's keep it above. There's a bunch of brothers out there that when I listen to them preach, when I listen to them sing, whatever, I have to compartmentalize because I'm like, this brother clearly out there. He is not doing what the Bible says concerning marriage. Can we just be straight up? This brother is not on the straight and narrow, right? I'm not gonna sit here. Look, I love, oh Lord, bless me. Oh Lord, bless me indeed, enlarge my territory. Oh Lord, bless me indeed. I pray for increase. I love the song, but I'm not gonna act like the person who wrote it is straight, right? The prayer of Jabez is powerful. But I've told this to my wife, I've told this to you guys, I've told this to brothers, I've told this to my son. I'm like, yo, look, man, I'm just being honest with you. I got to compartmentalize. And it's getting harder and harder because brothers are getting more and more into it. I got to compartmentalize. I know what Donald Lawrence is out here doing. I know what it is. I see what it is when I see a pastor and he's married to a woman, and at the same time, he don't act like a man. He acts like the woman he's married to. And I can see that he probably got people that are on the side, and him and his wife, they trying to just got a thing where it's like, okay, we get enough people to show up to church or whatever, so we'll keep this marriage just for business reasons, but you do what you do, I'm gonna do what I do. I mean, I see it, I know it. It's getting harder and harder. Can I be honest? People who are in the church and a lot of people who are into the Bible, you are some of the most hypocritical people when it comes to stuff because you will talk bad about the homosexual, but let's keep it above. You don't care about it. You just want to be right because if that person who you talk so bad about and homosexuals who you talk so bad about, man, my first experience when I was really, really introduced to it was when I was stationed. Matter of fact, I'll call it out. I don't know. They don't have the same pastor anymore. And I don't know if it's the same people because they're military. So people come in and out of there a lot. Some people stay for years. Some people, they transition in and out. Right. Church in Oahu at the time, it was the biggest Black church on the island, third biggest island. And the Kauai changed the Hawaiian Islands, right? Where Pearl Harbor is and all that. Excuse me. And when I got there, Trinity Missionary Baptist Church is the name of the church, TMBC. Pastor McClendon, I believe is his name. He was transitioning out. There were a couple years where they didn't have a pastor. They were seeking one. They had 4 people that were in position of them, right? But that was the biggest choir at that time in my life I'd ever been a part of. Mass choir was going to be 100 and something people. Children's choir could be 30, 40, 50, depending on the Sunday. Women's choir was really big. Men's choir was actually pretty decent. Sometimes I was able to get it to where our musicians would be like 10 to 20 of us. I mean, hanging out off the sides, right? Like crazy. And I started like thinking about things, but in my mind, because especially this is the first time I'm really this is like the second church that I've actually become a member of at this time. This is in 2004, 2005, 2006. And when I get there, I'm seeing stuff that I didn't think, but now that I'm aware of it, I should have known it anyways, but you try to just make it innocent. You try to just be like, oh yeah, this is just the way it is and blah, blah. But real talk, went over there and, sisters were riding with sisters. Matter of fact, sisters live with sisters and apparently roll with them all over. But I would hear and they'd be like, oh yeah, that's just my sister. Oh, that's your sister. Oh, okay. And so y'all live together and everything. Okay, cool. And look, I'm young. When I get stationed in Hawaii, I'm either 19 or turning 20. I'm still young. I'm still a pup, right? I don't know no better. As far as that, I should have, but I don't. right? I'm kind of sheltered a little bit, even though I hung out with some of the cats out there. I'm still sheltered somewhat, and so I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that's what y'all do. And oh, wait a minute, one day when they finally get comfortable enough with you, they tell your people. They didn't tell me, they tell my people. They're like, oh yeah, that's not my sister, that's just so and so, and we together. And when I get stationed somewhere, they go and we can't officially be married. So since we can't officially be married, I just bring them from place to place, and they get a job eventually. Da da da. Oh. And I would hear rumors about guys, and then one day come to find out there was a guy who had a crush on me, a couple of them, where he was talking to some woman who was attracted to me and got upset when she heard him talking about me and told me, and I was like, oh, I had no clue this existed. Brothers who I thought hated me, but apparently didn't like the fact that I wasn't in on the lifestyle. I'm just telling you, right? And this is the first time, like I said, 2004, 5, and 6. This is the first time I finally start realizing, like, oh, this thing is rampant. And then I start listening back to some of the same people I'm listening to, even people that are straight, but at the same time have a lot of very feminine tendencies, like Kirk Franklin's and stuff like that. And looking at Donald Lawrence, and then also who's another big one that we used to sing a lot of his songs. Bishop, is it Pastor or Bishop? Who's the one that sings, "We fall down, but we get up"? Right? That one. Who's that? Whoever that is, right? And he admitted he dealt with homosexuality, but it's easy to see. It's easy to see. And he rebuked it. He rebuked himself. He said he repented. Donnie McClurkin, thank you. I kept trying to say Donald Lawrence again. But I'm just saying there's a lot. Matter of fact, some of the ones who passed away, we know what they were. Matter of fact, on the lesbian side, I've mentioned her before, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who had many different names she went by, but that's the main one she's known by as far as being money. Like what you might consider to be the first big time gospel superstar. She would be doing concerts, and if Louis Armstrong was coming, he was second on the marquee. If Ella Fitzgerald was coming to sing, she was second on the marquee, right? And she was a sister who was going back and forth. Matter of fact, when she passed away, it was a lesbian lover that she had her number one hit with, who had lost her mother. So she left her and went back to her. She had lost her mother and her sister, or something like that, her mother and her brother at the same time, on some kind of weird accident, and just left because she couldn't handle it. But then she went back and fixed her up so that she could look nice for her church funeral. She was the one that did her makeup and everything, right? Because she still and this woman, Rosetta Tharpe was going out with men, women, this and that, or whatever. We are the biggest hypocrites because we don't live what we say either. You said, what's the point? Stoic, I literally just said what the point is. Did you just show up? If you just showed up, then be quiet long enough to hear it, or just straight up say, hey, I think that you're somebody who hates gay people. And then we can talk like that. Or just be somebody that says, hey, I don't have the patience to actually learn from somebody like you. Right? But the point that I just made was that we are hypocritical, and we're talking about who's listening. So you're proving my point. People don't care about being righteous or being a right lawful standard. They just want to be right. They just want to win. So my point that I said, right, that we're talking about today is that we are hypocritical, right, when we're sitting up there judging people who are homosexual, because even if you don't like them, you allow it anyway. So how can you allow it and then get mad at them when you can no longer use them? Did you get the point? Did you get the point? So you probably agree with me, even though you're so quick to be in disagreement, because you don't care about being righteous or being in righteous intent or doing it correctly. You care about winning an argument. You are part of the problem. But for those that want to make true change, we got to realize who's listening. And some people aren't listening to try and cause change. They're trying to do their best to make sure that you do what they say do. You said when your eyes have been open to the truth, you're not supposed to turn away from it, so it will not start affecting and changing you. I'm sorry. When your eyes have been open to the truth, are you not supposed to turn away from it? Okay, from it, so it will not start affecting and changing you. Well, when your eyes have been open to the truth, then you start a journey. You start a process. Admittedly so, everybody's not going to change overnight. But if you realize something to be true, you have a decision to make. You have free will. There's a lot of people who know that what they're doing is not righteous. There's people who are out there on drugs who know they're not supposed to be on drugs. There's some decisions that have to be made. There's some sacrifices that have to be made. There's people out there who know that sex is marriage, marriage is sex, but you're shacking up already, and it's hard for you to go backwards. You're already laying down with them every day. You know what I'm saying? But we still have a choice. When eyes are open, you can't hide. Yeah, you can try, so we have to make choices. But once again, that's what I was saying, even about people say, let's fight. Well, that's a righteous intent, but it might not be right. I mean, it might be right, even. You might feel right about it, but it might not be righteous. Yeah, no correction to the sins. Just love everybody. The Cirque says, yeah. So no correction. And by the way, the people in Cirque, they don't believe that you should just love everybody. The reason why people are now saying we should be open to homosexuality is because it's the newest fad. Because these churches are not based off of truth. They're based off of fads. Matter of fact, these brothers out here talking about that they want multiple wives. Y'all were never talking about. I'm not saying there were none of y'all, but for real. Y'all in the Bible, y'all that were Israelites, all that, y'all weren't talking about having multiple wives until Yahweh and some other people started coming, and people that were running game and selling women and that were prostituting them started teaching you about marriage. And now all of a sudden, you want to talk about that's what y'all always said. And now you want to say because Israel had this many wives, Israel was disobedient. Jacob, Israel, he was disobedient. Well, Abraham had his maidservant. Yeah, Sarah and Abraham were disobedient. You're only bringing it up now because you want to live in disobedience. And that's okay. See, I wish people would and it's not okay, but hopefully you hear what I'm saying. It would be better for you if you would just admit that I want to do it and be disobedient. I don't want to do what God's word says. And so look, this is what I want. Cool. But what's problematic is when you try to take somebody's culture and try to change it. You are in Balaam doctrine. Well, Samuel's mother, she was one of two, and the other, it wasn't righteous. Problems came out of it. She felt like she wasn't a woman because she couldn't do what the other woman did. That's not Yah's will. I'm sorry, what'd you say? Hey, Sister Latoya, what'd you say? You said we don't have to continue to do the wrong thing. Yeah, we don't have to. Matter of fact, if you've been freed, then why not be free of sin? Sin is missing the mark. If you're free of missing the mark, if you know that you've been trying to hit the target and you've been coming close, missed it. Let me go back at the quiver. Missed it. Got closer that time. Y'all saw that I got closer. Y'all saw I got, okay, I'll try it again. Oh, I hit the target, right? If we know we were missing the target, why don't we work harder to hit the target rather than just being like, well, I'm missing anyways. I might as well just aim completely somewhere else. I'm missing anyway. Hey, at least I hit something. That's how your relationships be, by the way. Hey, I know that's not really a husband. That's not really a wife, as y'all said. But hey, at least I got somebody. I've heard some of your testimonies where I try to talk to you, and we've had to do life coaching, and I've talked to sisters who will tell me that, hey, and I'll be listening to them, talking about their husband or talking about their ex, or talking about whatever, talking about the person that they're with. And I'm listening to them. I'm like, how in the world did this woman decide to even get with this guy? And then she'll on the phone, she can't see my face, but on the phone, she must feel in her spirit, or she must be used to people looking at her a certain way. And she'll go, yeah, I could tell you probably are even thinking like, why would I get with that person? And then she'll tell me, at least he loved me. Now, he didn't love her, but somebody was willing to put his hand to her or hold her or touch her from time to time or to lay down with her, and she assumed that was love. Men do the same thing. Oh, yes, we do. I know, brothers, you're so alpha male that you could never fall prey to something like this. But you do stuff like that. Oh, yes, you do. Be out here giving away your strength to these Delilahs out here. Playing with them. They asking for this, they asking for that, but they're not a wife. They're not a wife. How you doing, Divine Insight? Right? But people don't want to be righteous. They want to be right. How you doing, R1 Game? People don't want to cause change for the better. They just want to be right. They want to be able to say, hey, look, I was the one that cracked the code. I was the one that got the views. I was the one that everybody agreed with. Me, look at me. Look at what I did. Look at how great I am. Look at this. Look at that. Meanwhile, you're losing the war because you're trying to hold on to a battle that's not even yours. That's why I'm done trying to always have to be, I'm done always having to be right. If I'm never right again, that's fine. Just let me be righteous, y'all. If I'm never right again, just let me be righteous. Because righteousness is eternity. Right is for the moment. And somebody that'll be right in the moment and give up righteousness for eternity, that's a fool. Like the person who came in arguing, talking about, oh, this is not, what's your point or whatever. You know what my point is. Or you would if you had been quiet long enough to listen. Because you would have found out we agreed. I was agreeing with you because you were coming on here to defend LGBTQ plus people. I wasn't or persons. I wasn't here defending LGBTQ plus lifestyle, but I agree in defending the person, the real person. I don't want to dehumanize. I want to rehumanize. How you doing, Bridget Javier? Yes, fam. Yeah, you touch a nerve when you're righteous. See, people who want to be right, have you ever thought about this? People that want to be right, the only power that the person that wants to be right and not righteous has is to get on your nerves. But the person who's righteous has by just being righteous can't help but be on the person's nerves who's right all the time. I hope you got the context. I know I kind of said it a little weird. Oh, thank you, Walter. Yeah, we're getting back in the season for doing some of that stuff. After we get past October 6th, my born day, I don't know if I'm gonna take like a few days off or take a couple of weeks off. Probably just a few days, because if it works out, it'll probably be like 5 days or so. I'll still be kind of sort of off after that, but I'll be back in front of you guys on a regular basis. But yeah, the season for that and all that stuff coming back together is definitely upon us. I'm gonna have to work that stuff out. Amen. But yeah, being right. More people are concerned about being right than being righteous, and that's the problem. See, and people who are right, they get on the righteous person's nerves. But watch this: if you can find a way to just realize who's listening and who you're entertaining, and realize that, hey, even if I have to listen to you, or you're going to have to listen to me, and I know you're not trying to figure out about righteousness, you're just going to tell me why I'm wrong because you need to be right all the time. I'm not going to let you affect my day. When you get to a place to where the person that has to be right all the time cannot affect your day, they have no more power. This is why people get mad. You don't think that you should vote, and you blah, blah, whatever. Yeah, because Joe Biden doesn't do anything for me. Well, you know what's going on in Ukraine, and they don't treat people blah, blah. Yeah, they weren't treating our people correct before the whole Ukraine thing happened. Well, they can send money over to Ukraine, but they won't send it over to Hawaii. They've been taking Hawaiian people's land. Matter of fact, they took Hawaiian people's land. That's why it's a state. It's a nation. And who was the first people to buy it? It was the Dole people. People over Dole plantation, Dole fruit, vegetables that you eat. They were the first people to buy it. That was a nation. That was a corporation that bought it. And then they sold it to the corporation to the United States. The United States had backed them up and taken it from them. You're missing the point. Why are you flabbergasted now when that's the reality that they've been living in? Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have love for them. I'm not saying that we haven't sent some stuff to help some people over there. I'm not saying that we shouldn't send some more stuff over there to help some people over there. But hear what I'm saying. I'm not flabbergasted. This is not new. It doesn't affect my day. So I can study it and I can look at it and I can say, okay, this is how we need to move. And I'm not moved by the Republican sentiment or the diatribe of the Democrat. I could care less about that. I just need to help the people. Yeah, amen, Sister Nadine. Yeah, they come on, they prove the point by what they do for real. Yeah, I'm not gonna let you affect my day. Come on, Sister Christina. Come on that journey with me. You being right is not effective anymore. And this is why people don't like it when we talk like this, because that means we have power. See, we used to have a form of Elohim, but we denied the power thereof. But when Elohim is the focus and we seek first his kingdom and all his right lawful standing, his righteousness, all these things are being added unto us, and we give no thought for the morrow, for the morrow takes care of the things concerning itself, even to the evil sufficient that comes thereof, right? And out of that, therefore, now I realize whatever I give, including judgment, it shall be given unto me. Elohim's measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give unto your bosom, for with the same measure that you meet, shall it be given unto thee. But then I'm not finished there. I'm just reading the Sermon on the Mount, by the way. We're just talking Sermon on the Mount. We're talking Bible here. Because then after that, so I'm not worried about it. I give, realizing whatever I give is what I get. So just because they're focusing on that, I seek first the kingdom, all right? And all his righteousness, I get a return from him. He takes care of my tomorrow before I even get there, which means I'm not anxious about tomorrow, because whatever happens tomorrow, if I'm in his will, he's already taken care of it, even the evil that's coming my way. Therefore, I judge things in the moment according to his word, which means I don't judge according to my standard. I judge according to his, which means I never judge, but he is the judge. Therefore, out of that, now I get to the place of where I'm not focused on everybody else's straw and chaff in their eye and getting so worked up over the little mote in someone's eye, right? But I've removed the beam from mine and gone through some spiritual surgery that I can have some vision revealed or re-given. And therefore, now that I've been I can readdress my vision. Now I've gotten to a place of where I don't throw pearl to swine and I don't get into certain things anymore that aren't for me. And therefore, I shall be like the wise man who listens to Yehoshua, who built his house upon the rock, rather than the foolish man who's in between the sea and the land. That's why they call it sand, in between sea and land and sand, right? I won't be like them. And therefore, I'll listen to the one who has authority, more authorities than the scribes themselves. All we did was talk about Matthew 6 and Matthew 7 there. And before that, Matthew chapter 6, I need to make sure that I realize how to give my gift to people, or how to give alms to people, and how to pray and how to forgive, so that I can seek first the kingdom and realize that if Yah takes care of foxes, if he takes care of birds, excuse me, I'm going to another verse, sorry. If he takes care of the birds and he takes care of the grass and he takes care of the lily, then why wouldn't he take care of me? I'm done letting the right affect my righteous. Is anybody done? This is the season where I can release myself from what is right and I can get back into what is righteous. If what is right matches what is righteous, that's great, but I'm not leaving righteousness, right? If I'm walking down the path of righteousness, right? If I'm walking down the path of righteousness, why would I be pulled off track? Because somebody said, hey, man, this is right. Let me come over here. No, the path is righteousness, right? The path is righteousness. Why am I going to stop walking in righteousness? Because somebody over here is thinking the path is righteousness. I know what the path is. Remember we talked about this verse? I have not seen, is it 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9 and 10? Everybody always only focus on verse 9. I have not seen, nor has ear heard, nor has entered into the heart or the passion of man what Yehovah is going to do, what Elohim is going to do concerning those that love him, right? But so if you look at it, he's already separated. That there is people whose eyes can't see what you see, whose ears can't hear what you hear, nor people who don't have the heart that you have, because he's already revealing things to you. But when you read verse 10, it solidifies it. It says again that he's giving you things that other people cannot have. You are not the same. You are not the same. Right? I'm not an NFL star, so I can't read defense or offense like an NFL star. I can't. Somewhat at times, but I'm not able to, right? But there are certain things that I know to look for. If I'm playing quarterback, when I go into the position to get the ball hyped, before I even go there, I wait a minute. I might do some things, try and do some things, but I'm looking at what is going on. If I'm lifting my leg, I might be saying to the wide receiver, I might be looking, and I'm looking to see what goes on. I might put the wide receiver in motion. Or I might tell him to come over in motion, or tell the tight end or something to move. And I look to see what happens with the safeties. Some of you know football, some of you don't. There's two safeties. There's two guys that are usually going to be further than the furthest back. And I look to see, and one safety might follow the other guy might go ahead and shift backwards. If he does it, I say, oh, okay, they're playing a zone. That means that now I know that one guy's going to stay in position. This other safety, he's going to move accordingly. So I already know that wherever this guy goes, the safety's looking at that first. All right, cool. There might be a wide receiver where I'm looking to see what his matchup is. I say, oh, he might be able to outdo him. I got a wide receiver over here that's known for being fast, but he got somebody that's just as fast. But I got another wide receiver over here who's not known for being fast, but he can get past this guy. I'm looking at all the different things. I'm looking at the coverage. I'm talking to the center. The center is talking to the line. I'm saying, hey, watch out for 52, 54, 54. I'm letting them know, hey, I think they're coming on a blitz. I'm not sure, but 52 maybe, but 54, hey, he's coming, right? I'm looking at all this stuff, right? I'm looking and gathering all this information on the field. I'm moving things around. I'm playing chess. Before the ball is hiked, a lot of people only pay attention to before once the ball is hiked, but everything's happening before. And now that I've seen it, I say, okay, the safety that's back there, he's going to be in the zone, so he's going to try and stop us from going back far. But I say, wait a minute, my man over here, the wide receiver, he's known for being fast. They're afraid of him, right? So if I fake, and this is all going through my mind before I say hike, I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, well, if I fake to him, right, or I act like I'm going to throw it to him, they're worried about him. He'll probably shift over. If he shifts over, matter of fact, I've watched film on him. And I've watched film and I've said, you know what? He goes for pump fakes. And he's afraid of him at the same time. I probably can get him on a pump fake. This guy, he probably can beat him. He's not as fast, so I need to give him a little more time. But if he beats him at the line, he's gonna be open all day. There's nobody else left there. Everybody's this guy might be blitzing. This guy definitely blitzing. The middle linebacker look like he's gonna stay still. The linemen are all coming. Okay, he's gonna be one-on-one. If I do it, I say, okay, cool. Hike, literally take the ball back. I might look this way. Now that I look this way, the person in front of me, he's got to start moving that way. I pump fake. He goes for the pump fake like I studied on film. That guy's not even who I wanted. I turn back. I trusted my man. He's gotten past this guy. Touchdown all day, right? Now, some of you comprehended what I said. Some of you, I might have lost you. But what I'm trying to say ultimately is that I'm not worried about being right in front of what y'all think after the fact. I went through a righteous, what they call, I read my progressions. I read them righteously. Right. And even before I read the progressions, I read the field and then I read my progressions. What does that mean? It means that I looked at everything the way it is. I've studied. I looked at all this stuff. I've looked at people's mannerisms. I've looked at all these different things. Right. I've looked at where people are. I've looked at what people's tendencies are. I've looked at who can outdo who each other. I know the work that person puts in because I'm his teammate and I work just as hard as he does. Just because I'm the quarterback doesn't mean the wide receiver and I don't lock into a lot of meetings and things like that. I'm looking at all this stuff. And then when I hike now, it's time for me to do the progressions, right? Go through my progressions. And when I see that they've read it the way I want them to, when I pump fake, all I got to do is turn and it's easy. It's just a throw, right? All that is what I'm saying is that there's some of us who can't read on that level because we're not trying to be righteous. We're not trying to read on that level. We're not trying to study. We're not trying to be ready. We just want to go out there. And I used to be that guy. I was 6'5.5". I used to play ball. And all I used to be like is, yo, when you say hike, just throw it up. Right? I can run routes. Not a great route runner, though. Never really studied it because I'm just going to go over you. If you can throw it up high enough, I promise you I'm coming down with it. And that's fine, but it only gets you to a certain level. Right? That's fine, but it's only going to get you to a certain level. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it sounds great and everything, but you're only going to get to a certain level to where at some point you got to learn how to play the game. You got to learn how to go through. You got to learn what righteousness is. Being right, for example, my son has a lot of my tendencies. My son, Solomon, who's in training to be like his father and be better than his father. The sweetest of all tastes, so taste and see that Jehovah is tabah. That's the sweetest of all taste. Psalm 34, verse 8 or Psalm 34, verse 10, one of those. Okay. But my son has a tendency to, because he's extremely intelligent, he has a tendency to not learn how to make sure he sounds words out. And it hurts him sometimes in the spelling because he can read a word because he knows what it says, but he doesn't necessarily take time out to learn the phonetics. Right. And so you'll catch him sometimes slipping when you right, because he's 8 years old, and at 8 he can read on like a 13, 14-year-old level at times, right? But he can't sound it out even though he can read it, because just like his father used to, he has an ability right? He has the ability to just say, throw it up. He has the ability to just say, look, man, I don't even need to be righteous. I'm so talented. I'm so gifted. If you just show me what it is, I'll get it right just because you showed me what it is. But he can't go through the progression. And quarterbacks that can't go through progressions, right? Ask Trey Lance, for those of you who are football fans, San Francisco 49er fans specifically, or I guess now Dallas Cowboy fans. Ask Trey Lance. Trey Lance has a lot of ability, but he can't read the field. And everybody trying to say it's unfair what happened to him, but you don't know how to read the field, bro. How you doing, Shelby? And it's not me trying to come against him. I'm just trying to say he can't read the field. You can't be a quarterback and not know the progression. You can't be. Matter of fact, he read it so bad. There's a play where he goes back during the preseason. He throws the ball. The guy jumped it to intercept it, and his throw was so off from where it should have been in reading the field that the guy was actually jumped it, and he threw it behind the guy trying to intercept it. And the guy trying to intercept it was like, dang, that was so bad. Shoot, if you had thrown it just somewhat bad, I would have had, or if you had read it bad, I would have been able to pick it off and get a touchdown. But he missed it because he was like, dang, I wasn't expecting you to not read the field in that manner. See, some of you got to be careful because sometimes when you're trying to be right, sometimes y'all get something past the enemy and you're just so off on the way that you do stuff that even the enemy is confused. Like, wait a minute, hold up. I wasn't expecting you to even do all that. I know you want to blame the enemy, but see, some of y'all are the first person to jump up and talk about forgive me, this is the lyrics to the song I'm quoting. Some of y'all be the first person to get up and dance to, my coochie pink, my booty hole brown. Yolanda Adams. You know what I'm saying? I'm just being honest. Like some of y'all are so on point that even the enemy is like, yo, wait a minute, it's that easy? Like I didn't even have to work that hard for that. Beyonce out here talking about church girl and talking about riding and doing all this stuff or whatever. She got a church of Beyonce. Never denounced it. You don't even realize that witchcraft, when it comes to witchcraft, every witch, and if you're in a small group, is in a coven. Every large group is a hive. It's called the Bay Hive. And if you look up what bees are, right, if you look up Greek theology, this is where this stuff comes from. Her husband is Jehovah. He's trying to tell you he's the god of hip hop. She's supposed to be his wife. And this woman who was married to this god or this deist, right, she was somebody who was a bee. Right. And she had bees, even sometimes that would come out of her skin. Matter of fact, she's identified in one of the God of War games. If you've ever played God of Wars, if you've ever heard of God of War, there's a scene where you'll see Kratos and her fighting. And she's got all these insects that come out of her or whatever. But if you are a witch and you have a large group of witches that you're part of, they don't call it a coven, they call it a hive. And that's where the Bay Hive comes from. And they're trying to tell you Jehovah and Behive. And I'm not saying just something that, I think that makes sense. No, or it's something that's like, something that you read up, but they've never said it before. They've slipped up and told you before. And the devil is like, dang, I don't even got to work that hard. Like they'll just straight up, I could just have my people tell you that they're Jehovah and that they're Beyonce and that Beyonce was her name, but that there's Behive and they'll have a church of Beyonce and people will worship at it. And she'll literally make herself the Madonna and Christ child, which is really just a Madonna and child. And she'll have it in Black is King. And she'll go from having the serpent on the red to having the serpent on herself. And she'll say in the beginning of Black is King, as she's flowing down the river, as her child, even though the Bible doesn't say Moses went down the Nile River, but we keep saying that, right? But as she has her child start the Nile River, then she'll take the child and she'll say, you're bigger than this. You're bigger than the moment. You're bigger than what they say. You're bigger than the Bible. And people will still say, yeah, Beyonce, woo, right? At some point, the devil is like, I don't even got to work that hard. Now, if you went to the concert, I'm not here to do what the other person said and rebuke your mortal soul and all that, right? I'm just trying to tell you, the devil ain't working that hard. Because we're not concerned about being righteous, and we'll find every excuse to make say it's our right to do that. right? Go look up if you haven't looked it up before. Well, if you don't, right? If you guard your gates, if you're not ready for that, or if you just don't want to deal with it. But we went over a little bit of it. If y'all remember, not too long ago, we watched it and we talked about it on Patreon and stuff. And man, the symbolism in there, y'all think, oh no, they're just trying. And this is where they even try to get us. Well, you know what? It's African symbolism, and every time that it's African, they try to make no. They didn't just grab antelope horns and this and that. They literally put demon horns on motorcycles that were painted red. They had somebody red seated in the throne with a snake around his neck, doing certain things. This is not African culture that they're talking about. This is demonic. You don't know what the Madonna and Christ child comes from. So you think that picture that's famous of Miriam holding her baby is there, but that was based off of when they changed it, the iron meeting the clay, where the Romans, who were worshiping Greek deities, the Romans took those deities and they decided to start making sure that they change stuff. So Zeus and Apollos and people like that became father god, right? And the Christ child became part of Madonna. Right, it was Madonna and child. Now it's Madonna and Christ child, and that's why they call Mary the Madonna. Right, like we're pretending. Either we're pretending we don't know this stuff, or we're just ignorant. But whoever's listening today, I want you to realize you're either going to fall into two categories. You're going to be in righteousness, or you're going to be right. Yeah, that's that Father God, Mother God, Son principle, and that's Ishtar, not Isatar, not Esther, but Ishtar. Right? Look up Ishtar and look up how she said that she was a moon goddess that came from the moon in an egg. She was impregnated by her dead son Nimrod and his son raised, right? Who she was also having sex with when Nimrod was still alive. She had sex with her own son, left her husband. Her husband was Cush. Her husband was Cush. And Shem had to rip Nimrod apart with the help of other people who were on the inside, because they were like, we're not going through another flood again. Now, obviously, y'all said, well, I'm not going to bring another flood, but they were like, yo, we just came out of flood. We're not dealing with this stuff again. And they got at them. That's how important it was to people. It was like, yo, we just went through destruction as a people. Why would we allow this in again? Take this dude out. You just saw that y'all scattered you guys' languages and y'all still trying to do this stuff. Take this dude out. I've just got to speak in truth. Some of y'all might not like this. Some of y'all might like it, whatever. I'm not trying to say somebody should take her life, because that's not for us to decide, right? But the Bible does declare that a witch should be put to death. Now, if you want to talk about her being not unalive, because I don't think I'm not literally saying anybody go and unalive this person, but dang sure we should make sure we put an end to this rhetoric that says that witchcraft is all right. Any witchcraft, by the way. How did Cardi B get her start? Cardi B was somebody who was in a strip club, right? Would sleep, or which either she said she never slept with the man. So let's just give her credit. Some people think she slept with the men. I don't know. I wasn't there, but would act like she was going to sleep with the men, drug them, steal their money, and then go to the studio. And we say, because of feminism and because of misandry and because of a lot of misogyny that has happened, sure, but we make an excuse. If that ain't witchcraft, I don't know what is. If that's not a Jezebel spirit, if that's not a Delilah spirit, what is? And we make excuses for her. Thou shalt not suffer poison to live. I see. Yeah. How you doing, fair use? America's taking us down the wrong path. America been taking us down. America is sold. This is where they sow their seed. And this is why a lot of churches have problems. Our church, your churches, I was going to say ours, it's not mine anymore. Your churches have become problematic. That's why Jamal Bryan can come out and tell you guys that I apologize on behalf of all the pastors, especially the black pastors, who have ever said anything about the lifestyle of the LGBTQ+. Now, I talked about this on even our Patreon. It's not as simple as what we're trying to make it either, because once again, we're very hypocritical. We have mistreated a lot of people and downed a lot of people who we used. And then once it came out that they were homosexual, then all of a sudden we kicked them out. But we knew they were homosexual the whole time and never helped them, never asked them if they were, never said, maybe you need to sit down. Matter of fact, something we don't do, which we're supposed to do in the kingdom, is that people should not automatically just be allowed to be in leadership positions. Like we do this thing, somebody does really well in money. So we go, ooh, make that person a trustee. No, we don't know nothing about you yet. We don't know your heart. You might be somebody that knows more about the word than I do, but you got to be vetted. You just can't come in the house and go in the kitchen. You might try to poison somebody. Just because you knock on the door and you say that and you suited and booted and you look really, really well off, doesn't mean that if I don't open the door that this can't be something to where I'm not gonna make it. I don't know you like that. Paul, this great apostle, all these epistles and everything. Paul had to wait. That's why Paul told you should make somebody wait, because Paul himself had to wait. Paul didn't just get up and start preaching. Remember we just read in the book of Acts. It showed us in the book of Acts. Matter of fact, it talked about it in Galatians, where Galatians chapter 2, either Galatians 2 or 3, I think it's Galatians 2, where Paul said that he had to meet up with Cephas and Peter and John, and who's the other one? There was a fourth one, forgive me. Did I say James already? Whoever. It was a fourth one. He had to meet up with, and he met up with them, and they vetted him. They were like, okay, we can see that you're called to talk to some of the Gentiles. And they were like, that's not really our calling. We're not there yet. But, Yah has us, and Yahshua has us doing something different. But we can see that you're an apostle, and we can see what's going on. But they quizzed him. They were like, hey, even though you're an Israelite, we got to quiz you. Even though you were a part of the Sanhedrin, we got to quiz you. We got to see what's going on. We can see now, like you used to be trying to off us. But now we see that you got this thing in your heart and your spirit. You're filled with the Holy Spirit as well. But they said we're gonna quiz you first. Let's see if you are who you say you are. You said your rabbi would say, "Don't just let anyone pray for you." Yeah, lay hands on no man suddenly, which means that you should, on the opposite end, let nobody lay hands on you suddenly. Or at least be led by the Spirit. Or at least have some kind of relationship. Right? You know what I'm saying? My wife can touch on any subject she wants in my life because she worked for that. She's proven herself to be a wife. I found her. She was a wife. He who finds a wife. I didn't find a woman to then say, okay, can she? No. Like in our society, in this truth, in this walk, she has shown herself to be a wife. I didn't marry a woman hoping that she would develop into a wife. I met a wife who would develop into becoming one with her husband. But once again, that's when it's righteous. It's not just right. How you doing, WCP? That's when it's a different mindset. It's got to be righteous, not just right. And a lot of people want to be right. So when I'm trying to figure out who's listening, I got to be honest. Who's trying to just be right? Who just wants to say they have all the answers? I got to be honest. I check myself sometimes. Not enough, probably, even. I don't even like to listen to myself or read my own books, literature, whatever. But sometimes I got to go through and check myself. And sometimes I got like 21 days of motivation that the sisters have been using for your women's meetings and stuff. That came from a book called 10 Days of Motivation, where I realized that 10 days of motivation is nice and everything, but it's not exactly what it should have been. And stuff is expanded. And so I went back and I expanded on it to where now it was once 10 days of motivation. I even was saying in the 10 days of motivation book, I was like, it takes at least 3 weeks to develop a habit, but I only wrote about 10 days. And so what I said initially was, well, you could actually do this 3 times and do 30 days, a whole month. And if you repeat 10 days, but then the Holy Spirit was like, well, there's more information that you left out. Go back and make it 3 weeks worth. And in that way, they can develop a habit. If they decide to do it again, then they're just establishing a habit upon a habit. You see what I'm saying? So as I grow, so I still have to learn and grow. My wife still has to teach me things about women because I'm not a woman. So some people be on here like, how do you talk about women and this and that? And it seems like, did you just get it all from the Holy Spirit, the Bible? I'm like, I got a wife, and my wife hips me to stuff. And sometimes I might say something, and she'll be like, "Hey, don't say that again," because da da da. And I got to listen because I'm not a woman. I'm Yahweh's wife in the spirit, but I'm not a woman. So when I talk about women, I talk about it from their perspective, and I listen to you, sisters. Whether I watch your videos or I've talked to you on the phone, I listen to my mother. I listen to my mother still after her death. Her words are still in my heart and in my mind, right? I listen to my spiritual mother when I'm even thinking that I might be wrong about something I'm saying about women. And she'd be like, no, son. And she's older than me. I listen to women that have been married 60-something years, right? I listen to women that have been through being SA'd. I listen to women who have never Had sex before. I listened to daughters. I have daughters I listen to. Right. And I've learned to realize that I don't know everything. And it helps me. See, when you're in a place to where you have a healthy attitude called I do not know everything, that healthy attitude of I do not know everything makes you a disciple because you are able to be taught. But people who got to be right all the time, you are a fool because you cannot be taught anything. Now, there are certain things that I know what I know. Don't get it twisted. But see, I have what you guys call an open mind. I can be what you call open-minded because I'm in a position to where I can say, maybe I don't know everything yet. You said, is it identity theft? What? To listen to a woman and say what she says? I'm sorry, I missed what you were asking. Oh, okay. Pure confusion. I'm sorry, I missed what you were talking about. Or I don't remember what I was talking about at the time, rather, Rissa. I apologize. If you can help me out. I feel like I'm being confusing now. I'm gonna wait to see what develops. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't remember what I was saying at that time. YouTube sometimes is a little bit behind the other platforms. But yeah, we have to get to a position where we recognize and realize what's going on, and we're not teachable. If you can be watch this. Anybody who calls himself a disciple, it means you must be disciplined. I heard a pastor talking about this the other night, and the pastor and I don't agree on everything. As a matter of fact, we don't agree on a lot of things. But I must admit to you that my spirit, man, rose up and applauded when the pastor came out and said, hey, and apparently he's beefing with some prophetess or something like that, which is crazy. Now you got beefs, and it sounded to me when I was listening to them go back and forth, sound like they beefing like, people in the world do, like people in the hood do, like people who shoot each other do. Right? That's what it sounded like to me. It is what it is, though. Y'all call it whatever. But I'm listening to this thing go back, but he was right about at least this one thing that I said, that he said, which is, hey, all these prophets and all these pastors and all these apostles and everybody out here, and they don't have anybody that they report to at all. He was like, they're a problem. It's the truth. Like that's straight up true. That everybody wants to give a word. Nobody wants to be a disciple, but everybody wants to make disciples. But you can't make disciples without being a disciple. How can you make what you're not? How can watch this? How can you breathe? I hope somebody got it. I think that might be enough. How can you make what you are not? Yeah, nobody wants to be held accountable. Don't hold me accountable for anything, but I'm going to hold you accountable. You better listen to the words that I speak. Obey me. You hear people say, obey me. And look, obey me as long as I obey the word. So by obeying me, you should never really obey me. You should obey Yah. But people out here, obey what I say. Listen to what the Spirit says. If you don't listen to what the Spirit says, if you don't listen right now, you're going to hell. People be talking to you like that. $100 line, where's the $50 line? Everybody can get in on your level. Everybody wants to make disciples and discipline people, and sometimes utter garbage. However, nobody wants to be discipled. Nobody wants to be disciplined. You know that all a master is, a rabbi is, a teacher is. That's what a master is. In their culture, a master is something else. They are slave masters, right? In their culture, right? They own football players and basketball players and stuff. They own them, right? That's why you guys keep talking about Michael Jordan and how many championships he won. Michael Jordan has never won a championship. He might have rings on his finger, but he's never won a championship. You know why? Because he doesn't have one. The owner of the Chicago Bulls owns the championship. Michael Jordan never won a championship. So you have a bad argument when you guys argue about how many championships people won, because technically nobody wins championships. The championships is a facade, the Super Bowl and the NBA championships and stuff, to be able to make you want to pay more money, right? Oh, that's what the goal is of that, is to make you to have it to where you're going to make more money. That's what the mindset is. That's what they're going through. That's what the thought process is. right? Just like voting is a thought process for you to think, oh, okay, I'm in, and we got to make it. And we got to make it to the president vote, and we got to make it to the vote for the governor, and the vote for the mayor, and the vote for the council person, and the vote for the judge, and the vote for the. But it's just a facade. Like those people don't work for you anyways. But you think you won a championship because your guy, your girl got in there. How you doing, Minister Samantha? Right? You think that you won something, but you didn't win anything. You don't own anything. People keep talking about our diaspora, our land, this and that, or whatever. You don't have no land though. In our hood, but you don't own anything. You don't own the gas. You don't own the food. You don't grow any food. How you doing, Pastor Hamilton? Right, Pastor Hamilton. Right, somebody who's on here who talks about accountability quite often, and he'll be the first to tell you, right, that hey, if you're going to be in this walk, you got to start talking about what am I accountable for? Is there anything that I did? Is there any person I should respect? Is there any person I should be under? And if I'm being under them until the day that I'm not under them, watch this. Until the day comes that I'm not under this person, I'm still going to treat them the way that you should. David would not touch Saul, even though Saul was trying to take his life. Why? Because I will not touch Yah's anointed. I cannot tell you how many times that I've been in a position and I've been under somebody and I have wanted to be long gone. And Yah is like, I didn't release you. The Holy Spirit is like, you ain't released yet. And I'm trying my best to be right. I'm like, but see, look what they're doing. And look at what they do with their family. And look at how they're not even teaching the word. And look at how they get mad. And they just using us. And they're not even doing this. And there's people that are leaving. And look at their family structure. And blah. And Yah is like, but I didn't say go anywhere, did I? And finally, the person will do something to where now I have no choice. I can't even stay if I wanted to. Sometimes they might even kick me out, and here I am looking bad. And can I use language that was not supposed to be so holy, but I don't think it's a curse word. But I'm gonna please forgive me if you think it's a curse word. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance, or I ask for forgiveness in advance if you think so. But I'm gonna just tell you the way I felt it at the time. I was pissed off. Everybody gonna talk bad about me and all the stuff that I did, and I did nothing but be obedient. I was the best armor bearer. I was the best assistant to the pastor. I was the best whatever it was. And you're going to sit there and talk bad about me? You know how much stuff that I hid because the Holy Spirit said it's not to be revealed yet? And because of that, I had to have people tell me. And the reason I hid it was because it was involving that person's family members that would have made that person look bad. And yet people said on my way out for making sure that I protected these women and children, I had to hear on my way out how I was in league with the leader because I didn't feel like I should have messed up an innocent child's life. And was told by the Holy Spirit to hold my peace. Oh, I was pissed off. I don't know any other way to say it. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings. I don't know any other ways. I'm still, you can hear it in my voice. I'm still pissed off. I've forgiven it, maybe not all the way. Now I'm listening to myself. I might need to go back into my prayer closet and forget this thing out because I probably haven't let it go all the way. I'm just being honest with you. But that thing hurt me. It hurt me that you would do that to me. The one person, if anybody had your back. But it's about being righteous. So many times I've been ready to throw in the towel, and Yah says not yet. I'm sorry, what you say? MIT Jenny, obedient unto death. Most don't even hang sirens long enough for that, or hang around long enough for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If anybody should have been upset about that, yeah, he was putting the fire under me, and also he was tempting me with the fire to make me pure gold. Amen. Live it is a great description. I'm just saying at that time, live it wasn't the word I was using, but amen. I'm with you. We can use other words for sure, right? I'm just saying though, right? And I agree with you. I'm just saying at the end of the day, I've been in many situations to where I was finding every right reason to leave, but I couldn't find a righteous one. Be careful be careful. I don't know who's listening, but be careful because you can find every right reason to do something, but it might not be righteous. You can find every right reason to leave that job, but it might not be righteous. It might not be the season yet. You can find every right reason to make sure that you stop paying attention to what Yah has for you, but it might not be righteous. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. I haven't even seen that one before, child of Yah. Thank you so much. Right? You can find every right reason to get a divorce, but it might not be righteous. You can find every right reason to keep on drinking, but it might not be righteous. You can find every right reason to keep on them shrooms, but it might not be righteous. You can find every right reason to keep leaving everybody's church, organization, camp, whatever, but it might not be righteous. Don't be right in your dealings, be righteous. I can then find every right reason to make an excuse as to why I'm going to eat unhealthy on this trip. I'm going to be on the road for weeks, and it's easier. Somebody blessed me, said, hey, what do you want to eat? You can eat whatever you want. I mean, Yah blessed me, blessed my family on this trip. Praise Yah. Praise Yah for the people that he's put in my family's life. And bless, hey, what do y'all eat? Oh, man, I'm on the road. I usually make excuses. I said, well, I don't know. I said, but that's fast for me in my house. Just fill it up with fruit and vegetables. We're gonna eat heavy a couple times. Praise Yah. But we just gonna be righteous. We're gonna be righteous. I can't use this as an excuse to say, well, I'm not in my normalcy, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of what's righteous. I'm already having problems as is. So when I get to a place where I can finally sit and chill a couple of days from now, I could just go to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm tired anyways. I got to get up on the line. Now I'm going to be up at 3 a.m. Pacific every time. So when y'all say, I'm sorry, excuse me. When we get to Monday and all that stuff, right? Sorry. When we do our, I'm going to be up at 5 a.m. That means I'm going to be up at like 3:30, 4 a.m. That means that like when everybody's finished, we're going to be greeting everybody and hanging out with everybody. And we're going to go ahead and close our eyes at about 11 p.m. I'm going to have to get up and turn up and be ready to go. And people are going to be like, well, where's my phone call? Or where's this? Or where's that? And I'm going to be worn out sometimes. But I'm thankful to Yah that he causes us to be disciplined. He's causing us to be what? To be disciplined. Discipline means I'm willing to be righteous even when it's not right. Once again, we got to make a difference in the words. What are you talking about, Pastor? If I'm righteous, then I got to be right. There's somebody out there right now that's telling you that you shouldn't do what Yah told you to do because in their mind, it's not right. Hallelujah, somebody. There's somebody out there right now. Hear what I'm saying, beloved? Y'all know I'm right about it. There's somebody right now in this right season who's telling you to stop being righteous because they don't see it as right. And you're going to have to figure out, is it more important to be righteous or to be right? I've been imprisoned over righteousness before. I had to make a decision. At some point, I might have to make another decision. I prayed not. But hey, you never know. I might have to make another decision in my life at some point that I might have to decide to be behind bars, to be righteous and not right. I'm just saying, at some point, morality has to pop up. At some point, being a father has to pop up. If you want to help the women that you say are all bad women, one of the first things you need to do, you ready for this? If you want to help all these bad women that you say are there, one of the first things you need to do, bruh, is be a great father. That's righteous. It might be right to tell all these women why they're wrong, this and that, but watch this. If you're going to show all these women and show them off and this and that, be a great husband, be a great father, be a great man, be a great protector, be a great teacher. Then you can be in a position to start talking about what's not right. Because watch this, women are helpmeets. Our sisters are helpmeets. Our wives, not even women, our wives are helpmeets. But our daughters and everybody, they're designed to help. What does that mean? That means they're going to help you to multiply. If you're doing what's righteous, they're going to help you to multiply. If you're doing what's evil, they're going to help you to multiply too. Give a woman a seed, a sperm, she'll give you a baby. Right? Give her a look, she'll give you a word. Give her a word, she'll give you a sentence. Give her a sentence, she'll give you a paragraph. Give her a paragraph, she'll give you a page. Give her a page, she'll give you a chapter. Give her a chapter, she'll give you a book. Give her a book, she'll give you an encyclopedia. Give her frustration, she'll give you hell. Give her anxiety, she'll give you depression. Oh, if we only comprehended that she is a reflection and she multiplies what she right, she multiplies and she reflects. You want your wife to be a reflection of you, but you are never talking bad about. See, watch this. If my wife keeps showing certain things, either A, I didn't get with a wife, or B, I might have to figure out why she's reflecting. You heard that term before? People say, stop reflecting. Why is she reflecting that? Now, wives, if you're not reflecting what the husband's putting out, this is why we got to know what a wife is. You might not be qualified either, because it would be unfair of me to just say every woman reflects, because the reality is if you're not a wife, you won't reflect. If you say, I don't need no man, how you reflect what you don't need? If you don't have to be in, and I'm not saying you have to be in a man's presence. Some of you can be single. Some of you have been called to be single. That's not what I'm saying. Get the context. If I don't have the husband in front of me, and I didn't make sure when he found me, that I checked him to make sure he was a husband, and I brought him before my people, my family. If I don't have father, mother, whatever, my spiritual elders, all that stuff, if I didn't make sure that this stuff was done properly, if I don't have any culture of it, then I can't be mad when there's nothing to reflect, when I never tried to figure out what there was there for. So guess what I need to help develop now? Help me. Guess what you need to help him to do? You need to help him to make sure that the vision is written down, that there is no division. And guess what? I'm here to tell you, I'm gonna help somebody. Sometimes your husbands that you think won't move, they're afraid to move because they don't think that you're gonna be in line. Or if they let you down, if they make a mistake, they already have it in their mind. I used to be one of these husbands. We already have it in our mind that when we mess up, you're going to be mad, frustrated, angry. You might leave us because this vision that Yah has given us, or this thing that's starting to develop as vision, I can't even express it. And I'm like, man, how do I get my wife on board with something? And we don't realize that you're just waiting to hear the vision. You're waiting to be like, please, babe, let's get this vision together so I can support it. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm married into. That's what I thought we were going to do. I thought we were going to do great things. But in your mind, you're like, but what if I mess up on this? And if you would just realize that, hey, look, he's developing in that area. And then when he starts, it emboldened him. Say little things to him like, babe, what do you think about da-da-da-da? Because nobody asked him that through the whole day. Nobody says, what do you think about this? And that's why he says to you in man speak, that's why when you say, how was your day today? He said, or what are you thinking? He says, nothing. And for you, that's irritating after a while. But he says nothing because he's not really supposed to give nothing. He's just supposed to be in this Willie Lynch thing where he goes to a job and he does this and he makes babies and he takes care of the baby best he can, and that's it. But then you're sitting there talking about, I need vision, and he's trying to figure out how to do it. And when he gives you anything, so express things to him. Like even, and watch this, don't express it like this. You know what? I'm tired of being with you. You never got no vision now. You never got this. You never do this. You never do that. You just like your daddy. I could have had all these choices of husbands. I'm not saying it's all how all wives do, but let's be honest, some of that happens, especially when we get in our feelings and we say stuff that we don't mean. You might mean it in the moment, you were right, but you weren't righteous. And so now he's keeping all that stuff in the back of his mind, because men are very introverted when it comes to arguments or discussion. Our wives are usually going to be extroverted. Our women are going to be extroverted. So women usually speak things out loud to be able to process them on the inside, right? But men usually speak things on the inside to later on manifest them on the outside. We work together well because we're different, but we are different in that regard. But when we become one, we realize our differences are necessary and mandatory to help us with manifestation down the road. So you got to start asking yourself, okay, what am I doing to encourage, to help me? He's starting to realize that he needs to get this vision thing in gear. What do I do to help him? To reflect that. Even, okay, hey, you know what, babe? I think, the Most High told me something about how we should make sure that we are on time better. And here's one of the best lines you could use. And I know some of y'all are going to be mad at me because you're going to think I'm trying to tell you to just humor somebody. I'm telling you, one of the best lines you could ever use for your husband, not to make him think he's all that, to encourage him. I said the husband. Some of y'all married narcissists or somebody with a narcissist spirit, that's not a husband, right? But he can develop anyways. But you got to help him along the way. If that's who you chose to marry, that's who you chose to marry. I didn't choose to marry the person. So it is what it is. But when we're talking about a husband, right? One of the best lines you could say to your husband when he says, babe, the Holy Spirit said we should be on time more. I'm gonna tell you one of the best lines you could use. You don't have to say it. That's okay. I'm just gonna say it. You pray about it. One of the best things you could say is, baby, you so wise. There's a brother in here that don't want to say amen, but I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that could be destructive. We got to speak life. I'm telling you, see, you don't have, because once again, all men are evil. And no man of this, and blah, blah. I'm telling you, one of the best things you say, baby, you said, well, have you ever noticed? See, because husbands are supposed to be spiritual fathers. Have you ever noticed that I won't say every man, but a lot of men, they say to their wife, they say, hey, babe. And a lot of women, especially when nobody else is around, they'll say, hey, daddy. Have you ever noticed that dynamic? And it's not perverted in our mind at all? Because he wants to be able to bless you and take care of you and cover you and give you affection as a spiritual daughter. He wants that. It's weird that you realize that about your physical father, but haven't learned that about your spiritual father. Your husband, who's supposed to become a spiritual father of sorts to you, right? Guess what he's supposed to do? He's supposed to take care of his daughter. That's why his first member of his congregation, according to 1 Timothy chapter 3, is his wife. If a man desires the office of a pastor, he desires an excellent, a tabat word. Therefore, let him be the husband of one wife. If he's going to have spiritual children, let it start with his wife. How you doing, Dwayne? How you doing, Austin, all the way from across the pond? We had Sister Serlin from across the pond. She was on with us on Zoom yesterday. Starting to get a little bit of connection going. We got to get that Zoom meeting going for you guys too. Right? But do you hear what I'm saying? Are you catching? Right? Are you catching that the husband, right? His desire, a husband. I didn't say a man. I didn't say a boy. I didn't say a wolf in sheep's clothing, a boy in man's clothing, a man in husband's clothing. I said a husband. This is why you have to know what a husband is. This is righteousness, not what's right. You think it's right to be a man and a woman, but it's not righteous. The only people qualified for marriage, sex is marriage, marriage is sex. The only two people qualified for it are somebody who's already pre-qualified as a husband and pre-qualified as a wife. If you're not a husband and a wife, you have no idea what you're about to get into. You says, does that mean at the time or just one wife? I'm sorry. Which part, Brother Vincent? I forgot what I was saying at the time. Spiritual father. I missed what part it is. If you can remind me real quick, my bad. How you doing? Is it Tamara or Tamara? Which one do you say? Tamara Brittain? Not sure how you pronounce it. But I'm sorry, you said sorry, you just missed the meeting. Oh, no problem. No problem. Yeah. Thank y'all for being on. I was just saying that we had Sister Oslin, she came over. Or I'm sorry, Sister Oslin is over from the same area of the world as Sister Serlin is. And so I was just saying, like, I'm excited that we finally starting to get this thing together and get some more worldwide, coming together on a more regular basis. Still got to be much better, but it's coming. Right. But yeah, we have to be in a position to where we realize how to make sure that we're there. And I will say this, because I'm not sure, where you are going. I hope you don't take this wrong. I just don't know where you were going. But I just add this on top of it. Even for those of you who believe, we don't, but even for those of you that believe that you should have multiple wives and all that stuff, at least learn how to take care of one first. Now, how you going to treat each wife, like the apple of your eye? I mean, I guess you guys say you got two eyes. I don't know, but I mean, some of y'all trying to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eyes. I mean, at some point you're gonna look like a mutant out here. But I mean, I guess that's something you're gonna have to walk by your own. I don't have the. I've never been taught by the Holy Spirit how to deal with that because I haven't seen it. But yeah, I know you're into one wife. I'm just saying I didn't know what part you were asking earlier. You were saying when you said, does that mean at a time or just one wife? I don't remember what I was saying at the time, but I was just saying I'll go further than that because I know your heart. I know your situation. I'm just saying as far as for brothers in general, because we deal with a lot of brothers that think like this, and some sisters are beginning to acquiesce to this because they've been taught over and over again that they are lower and lower and lower and lower, and they're basic, and they're not supposed to be alpha. You know, they need an alpha male, but they're supposed to basically be the betas and the sigmas and all that stuff, or whatever you call them, the deltas and whatever they call themselves now. And how can two become one if you have multiple wives? Right. Doesn't say 3 become 1, 4 become 1, 5 become 1. Right. It's a perverted experience. It's not righteous. Now, people will find places to find that it's right, but it's not righteous. As a matter of fact, there's many cultures, not just that like multiple husbands, some like multiple wives, some like multiple husbands. There's cultures out there where there be men out there. There are cultures out there where men be prostituting themselves. There's cultures out there where once a year a man is hoping to be picked because women get to go ahead and sleep with any man this one day during the year. I mean, there's a lot of wild stuff out there. It doesn't make it righteous, though. It can be right in somebody else's culture, but it doesn't make it righteous. Righteousness for us is not governed by us. Righteousness for us is governed by culture, by law, by kingdom, by standard. That's why we understand. I stand under it. Everybody wants to overstand, but I need something to understand. The only thing I'm trying to overstand is the enemy, because he needs to be under my feet. But I'm not trying to overstand Yah. He needs to be over me. You see these terms that if we're not careful, they take so much stuff in your life because whatever you speak, it has power. Who's listening? Who are you coming in contact with? Who's listening to your conversation, to your conduct? Matter of fact, who's listening to me today? Let this mind be in you that also was in Yeshua HaMashiach. Who's listening to me today? Because see, you're so busy overstanding that you can't suffer, but it's the suffering of this present time that is not to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed. But if you read that also, and you read in between the lines, what we're seeing culturally happen is that the things I choose to suffer through, the things I choose to go through, are the things that lead me to the glory. So I choose to go through things that don't compare to my destination. It's like if somebody told me right now, as we're going on our trip today, let's say we stop somewhere. Well, we will be going through. We won't be stopping in. But let's say we're going to go through New Mexico and go through Arizona today. And I decide to stop at one of the rest stops. And I see a sign, and I go down to the sign because it looks a little odd. And somebody standing next to the sign, they say, "Yes, Pastor Kofi. In fact, what you read is exactly what's going to happen. If you can run through these cactuses, if you can run through these cacti, excuse me." If you can run through these cacti, and I mean, they're going to be right up on you, and you're not allowed to have anything cover you, but you're going to have to run through these cacti, and you're going to have to do it for a quarter mile. But if you can run through this quarter mile of cacti, tearing your flesh up, on the other side is generational wealth. Some people say it's not worth it. But for me, generational wealth, if I got to take some cacti and just be out the game for a couple months, I'll do it if it means that my children's children will be taken care of. I'm just saying, right? I choose to suffer through things because it's not as worthy, because the suffering, watch this, the suffering has become worthy because of the destination. Oh, my great, come on, Holy Spirit. The suffering has become worth it. The suffering is now worthy, right? The suffering is worthy of me going through, or I'm worthy of going through the suffering not because of the suffering, but because of the destination. Right? If you have the destination down, if the destination is righteous, then it means that the suffering is righteous. It's not right, that you would have to suffer. It's only righteous. You got to say that to yourself. It's not right for you to suffer. In other words, if you're suffering for somebody to keep beating your head in, leave that relationship alone. But if you're suffering because you have two people that are willing to be together no matter what it takes, that's righteous. It's not right to suffer with a bad destination or with no destination. This is why vision is important. It's wrong to suffer anything without a destination. So what I would suggest is that first things first, we need to always try to get back to an agreement. And it's first things first, if we could be honest, is people need to comprehend how to figure out what the destination is. If we don't have a vision, I've said this before, a man without a vision is a dangerous man. We've got to get back to vision. We have to get back to some form of destination. Like we were talking, like what was asked earlier. Well, when should we fight? When should we fight back? Don't fight until you got a destination. Travel through the shadow of death is worth the travail to receive the inheritance. Come on, right? Stop fighting without a destination. You shouldn't throw one punch without thinking what's coming next. I might fake a jab just to get you to move back, or I might throw a jab a couple times just for you to think, oh, okay, he throw a jab. When he throw that jab, I'm gonna come over this time. I'm gonna back, and as soon as you back that way, I'm gonna fake the jab. Right? You start moving to the right. Here comes the side kick or the round kick. Everything I'm doing is setting up the next thing because I have a vision. I've watched tape, like we talked about with the football analogy we talked about earlier. I've watched tape on this person. I know what they like to do. Everybody has a weak point. Everything in life. How you doing, Prophetess Carolyn? Please check out Prophetess Carolyn as always. Once again, we're going to try to post more stuff, especially I'm going to try to really get into it tomorrow or maybe even tonight. Depends on when we get to our destination. But tomorrow for sure we'll be in Cali. So we'll be able to put that stuff out there, right? But you hear what I'm saying? Oh, you said you're in New Mexico? Okay, I don't know where exactly we're gonna be. Maybe if you hit us up on Messenger and stuff, I got to figure out. I have it in my directions, but I can't take everything down and look up, or else I'll mess up our live situation. But praise y'all. We might even be coming back through, or we will be coming back through that way because then we got to go back through Sedona on our way back, and then come over through Texas, Houston, and then after that we might go to Dallas for the meetup in Texas. By the way, those of you who are in Texas, so if you ain't gonna be in, we're gonna be in the San Fran area, September 2nd, September 3rd. So this weekend coming up, this Saturday and Sunday, we'll be in San Fran, and also we'll be in Houston. I'm gonna be doing a wedding, so I'll be busy doing rehearsal, making sure the paperwork is together, and doing the ceremony. But then on that Sunday, somewhere around the 16th, 17th, whatever that Sunday is, we'll be doing a meetup probably in Dallas. I'll have more information for you guys, but if you guys want to kind of set aside some time, or if you're only a couple hours away, Texas is vast. Texas is huge. I know it is. But maybe if y'all want to come that way just for a weekend or something like that, we'd love to see you. I'm not sure which way we're going to be leaving Texas, probably going up through Oklahoma and then kind of coming back down eventually, maybe through Mississippi or something like that, through Alabama into Georgia for the meetup at the end of September. But if you're going to be in those areas, just let us know. And we'll give you more information. We'll keep giving that information out. Just text us, email us, whatever the case might be. But that being said, I didn't talk myself out of where we were. I apologize, y'all. Where was I at? Holy Spirit, help me. We're talking about marriage. We're talking about isn't that or whatever. We're talking about. Oh, okay. Talking about going through the cactus. That's right. Going through the cacti and going through and suffering. And the suffering makes it work, right? So me having a destination. Many people don't have a destination. Praise God. We don't have a vision where we're headed. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Since we don't have a vision where we're headed, we're having a tough time. We're having a tough time. If you have vision, it makes it a lot easier. See, watch this. Every day that I suffer, I know what I'm suffering for. You hear that? Every day that I suffer, I know what I am suffering for. Right? It's different when I'm suffering, but I don't know what I'm going towards. But every time, see, watch this. Don't just go through something. You go through to go to. right? Don't just go through. That's the problem that a lot of us go through. Our issue is that we've been just going through, right? Don't just suffer just to go through to go to, right? There, there's the pot of, I know I'm going to somebody else's culture here, but I'm just giving a reference point, right? There's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Why do you go over the rainbow? You don't go over the rainbow just because. I mean, it's nice and it's pretty and everything, but then you get to the other side and you haven't done anything except just go over a rainbow. You can say you had a great experience, but what did it really teach you? However, like if there might be a goal at the end that helps you. He's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. He didn't just say, seek me just because. Look, yeah, seek me for truth. Seek me for foundation. Seek me because I'm your father. Seek me because I'm your source. Seek me because your spirit comes from me. Yes, all those things are true. But he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. There's a reward for seeking. It's tough when there's no reward, isn't there? It's tough when there's no vision. It's tough when there's no manifestation. It's hard for me to hang in there if I have nothing to hang in there for. Give me something that I hear right now in my spirit. There's a wife right now saying, give me something to hang in there for. And I'm here for it. Yeah, suffering with a purpose. Give me something to hang in there for. This is stuff that sometimes I have to ask the Most High. When I'm sitting up there, I'm like, why am I doing this? Please show me why. Because if not, I'm not going to make it that much longer. Praise y'all. Give me a second. Salah on that. I'm going to make sure Holy Spirit told me to check on something for my family real quick. So I'm going to go check on it real quick, make sure that they're all right. I'm probably going to be, I won't lie, I'll probably be like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. So for those of you who don't mind being patient, we'll come right back and we'll talk about making sure that we have a purpose that we're suffering through. We're in the middle of the series talking about who's listening. And today we're talking about righteousness versus right. We'll be right back. Thank y'all. No more than 2 minutes, I promise. Just got to make sure my family's ready to go. Alrighty, I'm back. Thank you for your patience. So I don't need to suffer just for the sake of suffering. We don't have a church, so we don't go to church. I'm not a Christian. We're not Christian, but we do have assembly, and our assembly is not just virtual; it's reality. So we reach to a lot of different places, but we have many different people in a lot of different places all over the place. If you want to learn more information, you can always check out how to get in contact with us via our main TikTok page, since you're on TikTok. If you're on Facebook, if you're on the podcast, if you're on YouTube, you can always just look in the description with the video. If you're on TikTok, you can always just click on our main page, click on the link tree, and then you'll be able to find ways of contacting us or finding other platforms that we're on. Or you can just wait if you want to be patient. We're almost at the end of this today, and we'll get ready to do our shout out. When we do our shout out, basically that tells people how they can get in contact, different things we do, classes. By the way, as a reminder, 2 classes are going to start tonight. So if you're taking Sovereignty 1 and Sovereignty 2, third quarter, second semester, it's time for Sovereignty 1 to, so Sovereignty 1 will be tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern New York time. Sovereignty 2 will be at 9:15 p.m. Eastern New York time. Alrighty. But yeah, so we have meetups that we do, whether I'm there for them or not. We have people that meet up in person. We have ministerial staff all over the place. We have people that keep in contact with people for us. So if you'd like more information, just let us know. Amen. You can always Google, by the way, you can literally go on Google and type in hashtag find, like you're looking for something, FIND, and then put Kofi, KOFI. If you really want to even get more about that, the name of our organization is called Servants of Christ. So you can put hashtag find Kofi and then put Servants of Christ next to it, or put it in the same search, on the search engine, put it, search it at the same time, and then it should pop up a bunch of information for you. All right. Um, but yes, we need to not just go through, we need to go to something. If I'm not going to something, it's going to be hard to suffer through anything. If I'm not willing to go through, or if I don't know what I'm going to, it's going to be hard for me to go through. This is why we should be teaching people what husbands and wives are before we get together. People get in relationships and they don't know what a husband and wife is. So if you don't know what you're going to, what is the point of this, then it's going to be really hard for you to go through anything. If somebody hasn't told you that from the beginning of the Bible, the first word and the first scroll are called the same, or have the same word, barashat, which literally means the son comes out the right family, was one with the Father, becomes our head, being destroyed, being led by the Holy Spirit to the cross, or the tav, or the mark. The place is completed. That was the first word, is the destination. They're telling you in the culture, this is where we're headed, and that Yah saw that in our imperfection and in our choices that we made, that he would have to do all these things that we're reading about. But if you don't get the culture down, you don't even recognize what the first word is. You see? So I don't know what to go through if I don't even know the assignment from the beginning. See, now when you've heard that, and some of you seen it written out, some of you taking classes even, right? But when you've heard that, you say, wait a minute, that was never introduced. Yeah, when you see these words in the beginning in Avda and Paleo Hebrew, they didn't have the word the, first of all. Secondly, they don't have, it was in beginning. So in beginning is the word barashat, which is telling you 6 characters, because every character in the Hebrew alphabet or aleph ba'it, it has cultural relevance. It all means something, right? In English, you just go, A is for apple, B is for banana, C is for coconut, D is for whatever, right? You just keep going all the way down A through Z. But in those 26 letters, which are based off of really the 27 Greek letters, the alphabet came from something called the aleph ba'it. The aleph ba'it, or the alphabet, as modern Hebrew now declares it to be. The aleph ba'it, though, it literally is every character has something attached to it. Every single character has meaning, which means that I can't read a word without character. See, in English, you're used to witchcraft. So in English, you can't say a word without spelling, because you live by spells, which is why you're not into the interpretation of the word. You're into something called gospel, which comes from the word God spell, the spell of God. God being a Germanic word that means that you can be any kind of thing you want to worship, which is why you guys try to say that he's the God of gods and stuff like that. But God is not a Hebrew term. Gods are not the same as Netrus. When you talk about Kemet, in Kemet, they don't have gods, what you call Egypt. But before it was Egypt, before it was Greek, and before it was Arabic, and before it was Roman and all that stuff, it was Kemetic, and even part of that, before that, it was Cushitic. And in those two cultures, they don't have, because they're pretty much one and the same anyways, but they don't have gods. Gods operate different than Netrus. Just like in Yoruba, they have Yorichas. They don't have the same thing that you operate in. Anansi doesn't operate like a god does. Onyankopon doesn't operate like a god does. And then you have to figure out what somebody actually means when they say stuff like Gi and Yame. Gi and Yame is something different than that. So we don't even recognize. We're just going off of somebody else's culture who enslaved you, and the oppressor is the one who still is teaching you, and you are captivated. You are captivated in the mind, therefore you are still captive, held captive, laid, silly, and being led away captive, where you are always learning, never coming into the knowledge of truth. But you feel like you're right. And when you're right, you're right. Doesn't mean you're righteous. You ever heard that term before? When you're right, you're right. I agree with you. I'll touch and agree. When you're right, you're right. Cheers. You're right. But that don't mean you're righteous. See, some of us have been talked into stuff. Who's listening today? Some of us have been talked into some things so much that we just believe it is right. So, for example, this is why you have to be careful with alt-right arguments, with Nazi-type arguments, because it sounds right after long enough. They'll say 13% of the population commits 50% of the crime. That's a lie. How you doing, Brother Ali? Hold on. 13% of the population. But 13% of the population commits 50% of the crime. That's not even correct. Well, the statistic you're looking for is that when it comes to, if you want to call them black people, African Americans, Negroes, whatever, when it comes to people who are black in the United States of America or in the United States corporation, when they go to court, 50% of the time, just about, they're going to go ahead and be said that they're guilty. And out of that 50% of the time, right, if you look even further, most of the time, they're not even guilty of what they're being brought to trial for, or definitely shouldn't serve the time that they're going to serve. That's the actual statistic. So if you wanted to be honest, you got to say, well, then out of 13% of us, which is what, if you wanted to, and I'm going to just guess, if we're still at around 310 or 320 million, I think the United States population is going down, but it used to be 320 million. I'm going to just make it easy for myself, 30 million. So if it was 30 million, we're supposed to be what, 13%? So let's say 10% of us, that would be 30. So that would be 30 million. If there's 300 million, 10% of us would be 30 million. So if you go ahead and put 3% on there, 1% would be 3. So that makes it about 39 million. So let's say in between somewhere around 40 million people in the United States are supposed to be what you consider to be black, or at least consider themselves and write on the census that they're black. All right. Or, okay. So if that's the case, and there's 40 million people, then you got to say how many of them actually go to court. Well, out of us that go to court, or even if you want to go to prison, that jail, that makes it go up a little bit. But let's just say those who are going to go to court, maybe you're dealing with 1% of that 40 million, right? So that means that you're dealing with about 400,000. It's really like 1.2 or 1.3%. So make it 400. Now my math is going to get wonky. I don't know. I'm probably going to be off on it. Let's make it 430,000. Let's just keep it 400,000. That's simple, right? And out of that 400,000, then maybe 200,000 cases. So it's not even 400,000 people or persons. You got to actually look at it, 400,000 cases. You could have a bunch of people that have multiple cases, can't you? But let's just say every person had a case. So I'm being nice here. That means half of them, 200,000 of them, people are going to say they're guilty. And out of that, you might have 100,000 of those that they're not guilty of, or that they're serving time that they shouldn't serve. So 100,000 people ultimately are getting what they deserve through the judicial system out of 300 million people in the United States of America. That's a lot different, isn't it? See, this is why you got to figure out righteousness versus being right. It sounds right to say 13%, but to say 13% of the population, that means that literally then out of 40 million black people, so-called black people that are in the United States of America, that means that you would have to say that 20 million of them commit crime. And that's not feasible. If 20 million people were committing the crime, right, then that means that you don't have enough police officers to even get that stuff. You don't have enough FBI, CIA, police, state officers, peace officers, whatever. You don't have enough of them to keep up, do you? But somebody's trying to be right instead of righteous. That's when you can tell propaganda better. Because there's no way that can be righteous. You're just trying to be right. You said something enough times. Or when you have people that'll say stuff like, well, what about the crime in Chicago? In Chicago, they're always killing each other in Southside Chicago. Why don't they start there? They're always talking about the cops, so they don't talk about accountability for themselves. Now, well, I'll give you that, because now we're getting into partial truths, but partial truths are still lies. So I'll give you that part of that is true, where we should govern ourselves. But here's the problem. When's the last time South Chicago was allowed to govern itself? Have you ever seen South Chicago under self-governance? Just a question for you. Can anybody tell me the last time they remember that South Side of Chicago was not under police rule? What's his name? Is it still Rahm Emanuel or whatever his name is? He still the mayor? or whoever it is now. Or no, it's the sister over there now. It's the woman. I forget her name. It's the sister there now. Have they made sure that Southside Chicago can actually police itself? Yeah, not in your 52 years of lifetime. Come on. The Minister Tamara, she's over in the area. Right? She's not in the area, but she's over there. She knows about it. I've been around the area myself from time to time. My father actually used to come in and out of there when he went to college and hang out with some of the gangsters over there. Right. So I kind of have a little, or used to, I don't have anymore. Used to kind of have a little bit of connection with some people over there. Right. But I'm just trying to tell you that like they'll say this stuff, but they think that they think you're slow. They think you're an idiot. And you're not an idiot, but you might be ignorant, or you might be taught to remain ignorant if you're not careful. Well, I'm sorry. If is TikTok buffering for everybody? If it's buffering, I don't know what I can do today, in all honesty, because I don't have a phone signal in this area. Is Brandon Johnson is a new mayor? Oh, it's not buffering? Okay. All right. So, but I'm just trying to say all that stuff. You'll hear people say they want you to remain ignorant. Like, have you ever thought about, people will say stuff like, hey, man, you know what? I'm tired of all this stuff. Every time that something happens, we need to get rid of religion because religion's the problem. But you guys don't realize that George Washington's your father because he has an obelisk, because he's supposed to be the father of your nation spiritually. He's supposed to be the Father God. That's why he's on the $1 bill too. And when you turn the $1 bill over and you look at the back, you see somebody hanging there where the light is. And they got him hanging there because the White House was supposed to be the manor. And the manor is supposed to be where the slaves were. That's why Foggy Bottom in Washington, D.C., which is George Washington University now, that's where the slaves were at, on the swampland. It was Foggy Bottom. That's why when you get off at that metro station, that's what you're getting off at. All right, Pootie, have a great day. Or if you're coming on, great day to you, if that's a greeting. You see what I'm saying? But you don't want to deal with what's righteous. You're so used to having something that you consider to be right in. There's a lot of people who've taken the right hand of fellowship at their churches, but you ain't found no righteousness there, did you? Don't worry about being right. Be worried about being righteous. I don't need the right hand. Now, the right hand of fellowship is something that's discussed in the Bible, but the right hand of fellowship came with somebody holding an apostle accountable. Did you ever catch that? Your right hand of fellowship is just people walk up, shake your hand, and say, welcome to the church. But the right hand of fellowship is supposed to be, we grill you and we check you out. We make sure that you are who you say you are. We make sure that you know what the ins and outs of it, because you're not just getting into something random. This thing is about souls. Savvy. I feel like Captain Jack Sparrow on that word. I like that word. I like words, right? Savvy, you comprehend? Oh, Lori Lightfoot was the one. Okay. And whoever it is, I'm just saying, at the end of the day, you can't sit there and say black on black crime, Chicago, and then never dismiss the fact that police officers are just as criminal, if not more so, than the black on black crime. Like, there's shootouts. There's stuff you can look at recently where there were shootouts in Chicago between young boys back and forth. People got hit that were part of the young boys and everything, went to the hospital. People got hit in establishments. And the police just chucked it up to some old archaic law that says that, hey, it was a duel. I mean, that's how they treat it. It was a duel because they're not going there to do anything. They allowed it to go ahead and become one of the worst places. So they say, one of the worst places of existence on the planet. And they allowed that. And then once they allowed that, then they don't want to go in there to fix it. Now they're going to come in there and fix it once they finally just wipe everybody out so they can go ahead and take over, because all the worst places that used to be the worst places, those are where all the people go to live, because at some point they got to keep expanding their territory. That's what kingdoms do. And they're going to come in there, they're going to throw you out, they're going to kick you out, they're going to overprice it, and they're going to gentrify it to make it look like themselves. And before you know it, a Cabrini Green will be something that's way back in your memory. You'll forget that used to be there. You'll forget that used to be a ghetto. You'll forget that people used to be in that tall structure and people used to lose their lives. And that was something that was government subsidy. That was something that the government said that they were giving you to make sure that you had the best quality of life. But all they did, they allowed people would be dead in hallways. excuse me, they would be without life in hallways for days. In the hallway. You got to think about what that does to somebody. Are they right to say that people shouldn't be shooting each other? Of course. But is it righteous to act like you didn't have anything to do with that? It's like when they talk about Haiti. Stop talking about Haiti. Stop talking about Haiti and Jamaica and the Bahamas and Puerto Rico and Cubano, right? And Dominicano and all these places. Stop talking about our people and saying that we're bad and that look at our situations and we're not eating right and we're not doing it. Look, you guys are the ones that came in, took the culture, enslaved everybody, messed everybody up, and then left because you couldn't outfight us. And then once we got our freedom, then came back and froze everything with the help of the CIA and other people to make sure that we're still paying you back reparations for you enslaving us. You're the ones that the Red Cross and the Clinton Foundation are in league with each other to where people in Haiti can't even eat their own rice. It's illegal for them to grow and eat their own food. They have to get it from Arkansas, and the Arkansas rice is trash. Just went through Arkansas last couple of days. Trash rice over there. But the Clintons have, with the help of the Red Cross and the help of NATO and the help of the United States of America and the help of the CIA and the FBI, have made it to where the people of Haiti cannot feed themselves. They have to get the rice from the United States of America, from the Clinton Foundation, and they can't even afford it, and it doesn't even feed them because it doesn't have the nutrients. And then people say, how can the people not be able to feed themselves? They're still in prison. They're still slaves. And one of the problems that we have is that we've gone from just the celebrity to the celebrity preacher. I know I'm one to talk. I get it. But we've gone from just not just the celebrity, but to the celebrity preacher. What do we mean by the celebrity preacher? We're going to get ready to take our leave. I got to remember that I'm not on East Coast time right now, so I got to remember we got to get ready to take our leave. So I see the time change. Praise God. I just realized that it's 11 a.m. Eastern New York time, so we're gonna get ready to take our leave. But look, watch this. And I got to get some rest too. I'm gonna take a nap before we get back on the road. But we don't even want to admit that, like, and you got to be careful. See, this is why you got to be careful who you're listening to as far as our leaders. Don't get it twisted. I think that Lena Horne, somebody listen to, and Killer Mike is somebody listen to, and all these people. But look, these are entertainers. And a lot of entertainers, even if they have some great information, Kanye West, entertainer, he's focused on his music more than he's focused on you, than focused on truth. Does it mean that he's never learned anything? Does it mean that he doesn't come from an educated mother? Of course not, right? But these are not people that are supposed to be our leaders. Malcolm X warned us about these people. Minister Malcolm Shabazz, he warned us specifically. He said, you are the only group of people, right, who have allowed yourselves to be duped into believing, right, that there is a black leader who leads in Hollywood. You're the only group of people who believe that there should be a black leader who leads from the NBA. Now, am I not saying that we shouldn't have had Jim Brown or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Bill Russell back up Muhammad Ali and making sure that he was a conscientious objective and should have been treated like other ones were? Of course, I'm proud of them for doing that. May I say that again? Of course I am. Kyrie putting out his statement. Am I proud that he would put it out? Of course. But watch this. Kyrie is not, that's not his responsibility is not to teach and to guide and to lead and to be a general. He did what he was supposed to do. He put the information out. He used his platform to do so. And others of us did what we were supposed to do. We came and said, Kyrie, since you did that, we will support you and have your back and let it be known that if they're going to do this to you, they're going to do this to you with our support. And they're not just going to do this with you out here by yourself, right? That stuff is necessary. Don't get it twisted. It's very necessary, highly necessary. I'm grateful that I saw that stuff going on. But Kyrie did exactly what he's supposed to do. After he put it out there, whatever, he spoke his piece. He made sure that he said what it is to defend himself, and then he got on the court. And at that point, all we did, and I'm not saying knocking it. IUIC, thank you for marching. Thank you for being in attention those couple of days, right? Thank you for showing solidarity. Thank you to all of you who showed solidarity. That being said now, What did we do with that? That being said, what did we do with that? Kyrie gave you that. What did you do with that? He gave you the bounce pass, no look pass. What you do with it? He gave you the ollie. Did you freak the hoop? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's great that Kanye came out. Kanye reverted right back real quick. Well, no, I wasn't saying we're actually Jews. I was saying that I'm, happy about what the Jews did and I'm jealous of them and we should do the same thing. But he put your stuff out there. What did we do with it? Who's listening? See, at that point, people's ears perked up. But see, Kanye wasn't doing that to build you up at all. Kanye's not building stuff for you. Kanye's still out there. Kanye went from Kim to whoever the next white girl was that he married or in a heavy relationship with or engaged to or whatever, while he was walking around with that mask on his face and all that. And I'm not even saying just because you're white, we shouldn't have anything to do with you. I'm just saying Kanye's not even invested in you like that. Kanye comes out and says some stuff from time to time to get stuff pushing so that you'll pay attention to his next sale. Kanye became Christian long enough to make sure that he was able to go into the biggest churches around the world, not just around the United States. He went to the biggest churches around the world, and he had y'all paying for them Yeezys. And he had things that you would look at and be like, man, if you saw somebody wearing that on the street, you would try to give them some dough. And instead, you bought it for $300 because you were supporting the kingdom. But what did Kanye do with that? And all the usual suspects, all the ones that could get in there, right? What's his name? Joel Osteen and everybody else were ready to give up the pulpits that were supposed to be for holiness. And they made sure that Kanye got up there because a whole bunch of people came in. Kanye charged him like it was a concert because everybody had to see if Kanye was saved. I'm just trying to tell you, you got to see who's listening. And some people came because it's right. He's saying Jesus now. So now what he says is right. But was Kanye ever righteous? Didn't Paul tell you? Didn't he teach you? Didn't he tell you, hey, don't bring novices in here? Did you ever listen to Kanye's testimony? Did Kanye ever give you a testimony? What's Kanye's testimony? You tell me. Tell me what his testimony is. Tell me what his testimony is. Tell me how he came into the knowledge of Christ. Tell me what he believes about Yahshua or Yeshua or Yahushua or Yahawashai or Yahavashai. Tell me what he believes. Show me the land that he sold into to make sure you're going to eat. Right? Kanye, and I don't have a heaven and hell to put him in. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not the Most High. I'm just trying to tell you, you were so busy, some of us were so busy trying to say why he was right that we got unfocused and we stopped worrying about what's righteous. Didn't I say earlier, I don't give my energy. I'm not going to lose my day. I'm not going to give my day away, my peace away, because I'm trying to make sure that I'm fighting for what's right. I'm going to be righteous, and righteousness is peace. I need that's a peace that surpasses all understanding, right? I don't care what Joe Biden is doing. This is going to sound wild. I care, but I'm be honest with you. It's not on my desk. How about that? I'm aware of it. I pray for the child and everything, but Joe Biden ain't trying to take care of a grandchild. That's Joe Biden's grandchild. What does that have to do with my righteousness? Yeah, it ain't right. But what does that got to do with my righteousness? Drake is out here not taking care of his child. Adidon comes out. Man, that was some bars. Drake looked really bad. What is that doing about my righteousness? The only reason you care about it is because you think these people are your leaders, and they are not. And if they are, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. They're not shepherds. Man, and I feel bad about this one because I really like him. And I think he might even mean well. Denzel Washington is not my leader. Right? And I mean, the brother can act, but Denzel Washington is not my leader. That's not what he's there for. And I know in our community, we're so starved for leaders that we look for them in everything and everyone and everybody. But Denzel is not my leader. Nowhere. Go to another diaspora. Say, hey, who's the white leader? In Hollywood. Do you guys look up to Angelina Jolie? Do you look up to Brad Pitt? Angelina Jolie might be doing some great work. I don't know, right? She seems to be doing some decent stuff. Some of her antics are a little off for me, but at the end of the day, she's doing some decent work. She out there. She helping people around the world. That's great, right? She's not the white leader though. You've been tricked. You said black people want leaders to be rich first. Well, that's because a lot of black people, once again, are looking for things that they think are what's there, right? But see, even what is rich, even what is it? Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. You think that you are poor, but really thou art rich. Get some land. Know who you are, right? Remember, even with your birth certificate, it doesn't earn, not in your birth certificate too, but your passport. If you know how to get your passport done, become a non-citizen national, because by law, it doesn't matter where you were from, it matters who you were from. And if you can get this thing unmixed in your stuff and resubmit yourself, right, re-register, if you will, with the state, with the government, the country, and tell them, hey, I'm not a U.S. citizen, neither have I come from a U.S. citizen. I'm a non-citizen national. I'm private. Then they got to allow you to live privately. For those of you that are into the Republican rhetoric, because I'm not a Republican or Democrat, but those of you who are Republican or are talking about privacy, then the first thing you should do is make sure that you're a non-citizen national, stop being a U.S. citizen. And then you wouldn't have to worry about big government, because then they wait for you to take care of yourself. The only reason why you have to worry about big government is when you don't take care of yourself. If you take care of yourself, then the government goes away. And then you can start talking about forming militias and doing all this stuff. But you got to take care of yourself. You got to feed yourself. If you want to get rid of your social security number, all you got to do is get together with a group of people who live in the same land, who have a similar belief system, and can take care of their elderly. Once they do that, you don't even need a social security number. They'll still make money off of it, but it's not attached to your name. Seriously. Like this is stuff we can move in easily. But we don't want to do it because why? Because we're not trying to be righteous. You're trying to be right. So you're more concerned about arguing for what you could easily do. If you're a Republican, then stop arguing about making sure that you're separate and just separate. And get with like-minded people and make sure that you uphold the values that you say are biblical values that you supposedly traditionally uphold, and make sure you treat people with respect. And anybody who's like-minded, make sure that you take care of them, love upon them, and make sure that everybody's taken care of. But that's not what you care about, is it? You care about being right. That's why you fail. If you're a Democrat, because I can't just leave it there because some of y'all are so Republican and Democrat in this that you think that I'm against you. Oh, thank you. If you're watching, baby, it's 11:11 on the East Coast. We're 9:11 here, but at the same time, it's 11:11. Maybe you need that 911. Maybe this is an emergency for somebody today. Praise God. You need to hear this and how serious this is, right? Watch this. Watch this. Watch now. Watch now. Watch now. You ready? On the Democrat side, Democrats could care less about us too. Democrats could care less about us too. And when I say us, I'm talking about all of y'all. Everybody listening on the sound of my voice, no matter what color you know, no matter where you come from. Democrats, they just simply say, hey, if you listen to what we say, we'll take care of you. But then they don't take care of you anyways. Or if you vote for us, we promise that we'll take care of your needs. And they don't take care of you anyways. Barack Obama, where's your stop black hate bill? And I know stop Asian hate bill is not him, but you hear what I'm saying? Where is that at? Where did he come through to make something? Now, look, LGBTQ plus, and some of us are in that group, if you will. So, hey, you can say in a sense he took care, but where did he take care? The only thing people will tell me is, well, he made sure that stuff like food stamps and for us to be able to live better and things like that, and for us to be in a government subsidy, it got better. Okay, fine. So that you mean that he made us more public? I'm looking for stuff like land. But see, then you got to realize that none of them work for you. Biden, who was supposed to have the woman who allowed the guy who killed George Floyd to get with y'all, the governor of, is she Minnesota or wherever she is, Wisconsin, and she was supposed to be the one that ran. She got in trouble when they realized that the one who killed George Floyd was the one that she had let go like 13 times, right? And so she was like, oh yeah, I don't think I should vote. I think we should get a black woman to run. And the same Kamala Harris, they used her as a puppet. She was the same one that came out and told you Joe Biden shouldn't be voted for because he's a racist. And then all of a sudden she was up there, we did it, Joe. We did it, Joe. She boule. She didn't say Wakanda forever. Matter of fact, she didn't even want to be known as black. She wanted to be known as Indian. Even though we're the same people, but nevertheless, she wanted to be known as Indian, not Native American. I'm talking about from India, from people who were enslaved and mixed with black people down in the West Indies. But then all of a sudden, we did it, Joe, and they both ran and said they were going to give y'all reparations. Where y'all reparations at? At some point, you got to start saying to yourself, why am I continuing to be involved in the same wicked system? Like, at some point, why do I keep going through the same stuff over and over again? Reaganomics, literally, as part of Reaganomics, was making sure that you had the Iran-Contra thing. People forget that the same person who said, make America great again, which is Ronald Reagan in 1980 when he ran, is also the same person that almost got impeached. And him and Bush being in charge, former CIA member, and they made sure that they did the Iran-Contra thing. You know, they were making sure that they were running weapons over there. They were putting crack in the streets, right? In places where black people were. They took cocaine and dumbed it down so that they could sell it as crack. And some people were selling crack rocks almost for sometimes as low as like $12 a rock. I mean, craziness. People losing their life, and they didn't care, so they could fund a war that they actually made illegal before Reagan got in, because Congress knew, Republicans and Democrats knew, he was going to try to go to war to try and keep power in a way that they thought it was going to lose American money. And he ran on Make America Great Again, almost got impeached. Only reason he doesn't, because Oliver North steps up and goes ahead and gets his pension and gets all the blame and stuff. Oliver North's secretary rips up and shreds everything so Oliver North doesn't get in trouble. And then Oliver North keeps getting paid for Fox News all this time. Meanwhile, though, y'all acting like that's the end all be all. But don't forget, way before them, Richard Nixon, who didn't like the fact that blacks and hippies, this is black and white people coming together, didn't like the fact they were coming together and having babies and were smoking weed. And so then comes and tells you weed is terrible. And had a phone conversation that you can listen to on the internet to this day. Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan having a conversation talking about black people don't have shoes and they're just monkeys. And Richard Nixon is laughing his behind off as Ronald Reagan is saying that. Meanwhile, though, we forget right behind that George Bush, part of the CIA, comes in and puts his stamp on stuff. And I've told you, this is not about even it being personal. This is about them keeping the system in order. I've sat down with George Bush Sr. and had conversation. And when the lights ain't on, he's just a cool dude. But when it's time for him to go to work, he works for who he works for. I know y'all don't want to hear that, but he clocks in and clocks out. When he wasn't the president and I met him and I was in the military and I was sitting there young, I didn't know what to expect. And I was just sitting down and I'm chilling and I'm trying to get ready for a ceremony. And then all of a sudden he's walking towards me and I'm like trying to figure out what to do. I'm trying to get up real fast. I can't find my cover to put it on. And we sat and chilled and talked. I've talked to quite a few leaders before, but that's probably the highest ranking official that I've had serious conversation with. And we were just talking and he was giving me game. And then immediately when it was time for him to switch and go into his mode, he went into his mode like we ain't just talk at all. Because it's not even personal. It's about who he works for. He got to clock in and he's got to clock out. Yeah, when the spotlight's on, he knows what he's supposed to do. He's not there for you. He's not there for me. He's there to make sure that he does what he's supposed to do. When the time for the class, it's not even and that's the part that we really got to catch, is that don't even allow it to be personal. I'm talking about being righteous and not being right. This is not about you. This is not about you. This is how they get paid, bruh. This is how they get paid, sis. It's not that they hate you. This is part of the game. I told y'all before, when I was in prison and I was trying to figure out what was going on, I was like, man, I ain't even do this. And, when is my right to a speedy trial going to be here? And they should just let me go. The grand jury already said I didn't do anything. And it was a brother who was guilty of a bunch of stuff who came to me. He was like, look, little brother, let me hip you to something. He said, they don't care if you're innocent or guilty. He said, they want to see how you play the game. He said, if you play the game correctly, they could care less if you actually did it or if you didn't do it. They said they're concerned about, are you playing the game? He said, if you play the game well, he said, you get out. If you don't play the game well, you're going to do some time. I said, really? I was so mad. Then I got really frustrated. So wait a minute, I'm gonna have to be in this for months and I didn't even do anything. He's like, yeah. And when you get out, you're probably gonna have to put on an ankle bracelet. And when you get off that, you probably still gonna have to come in from time to time to see the PO. And when you do, but and none of it's gonna be on your record. He said you're gonna be able to get it expunged. But he said, still, that's the game. He was trying to hit me. He was trying to tell me, you chattel right now, Kofi. Like, I know you think this, but you're not even a name. You're a number. Anybody ever been in a situation where you realize you're not even a name, you're a number? I don't know if you've ever been in there. That's a demeaning place. They don't even want you to say your name. Don't tell us your name, boy. Tell us your number. That right there, one of the most demeaning. And I know some people be like, oh man, I'm hard and blah, blah. I'm telling you, that part of the experience was probably the most demeaning. Fighting people, okay, from time to time, you got to fight people. Right, playing ghetto games. When I mean that, I'm talking about you play basketball in there. You don't play basketball. You playing football/basketball. You playing cards in there. You playing a whole different version of cards. Right, it's a different lifestyle. You go out in the yard, it's different. Right, but what I'm trying to say, right, you get an hour a day. That's cool. You know what I'm saying? like you learn how to deal with that stuff where you get free time. You know, I didn't even have money. I didn't have commissary money, any of that. So I didn't talk to people on the phone. I couldn't do any of that. Right. Eventually somebody in my family came and found me and got me, but I couldn't do. But I'm just saying, but the hardest part for me was when I realized you don't even have a name anymore. That was like the first part for me that really was like it was falling apart. You know, them making you do stuff, literally having you stand in line. I mean, people talk about all this stuff. Somebody was arguing with me about this on TikTok not too long ago. Then they ended up in jail. So I think they've seen that I was right about it, and they actually did what they did, and they're serving years and years and years now. And I pray for them. I pray that they're doing well. But they were arguing with me about, hey man, I've never seen slaves. You ever seen black slaves? They say that they had slave chains on your arms and on your legs and this and that, and you just think that's gonna happen. And it's like whether you fight it or not. I've been the person who's walked like this, and I've seen some people who are so in the system that they chained at the neck too. And I haven't seen it actually I've seen it in person, but I haven't been part of it. But I've seen enough video and stuff, and I've seen the evidence where I've seen the chain gang, and I've seen people still picking cotton. I've seen firefighters out in California who get paid $1 a day. Right? But I'm just saying, you don't even have a number. And it wasn't even my social security number, which I don't even really remember that much anymore. But it was my prison number. I've forgotten it, by the way. But after the first couple days, you have your prison number memorized. And you sitting there, and for something you ain't even do. It's not the end of my story. Matter of fact, it was in many ways it's something that was a catalyst in my story. So I'm thankful that I suffered through it. Don't get it twisted, because it taught me to get rid of some mindset stuff. Because I'm the person that was 17 years old, joined the military, and at one point would have told you I was gung-ho military. Whoever the president is, shut up and listen to him. All that, fight in Iraq, give me my medal, fight over here, do a little bit of Afghanistan, go to South America, represent the country there, like be with the 3 stars and 4 stars, learn how to run things from them. Like I was gung-ho. I thought I was going to be 20, 30 at least in. Might even done the warrant program, became a chief warrant officer. I thought, or maybe even got to a place where I would do something, but only maybe able to get to like 03, 04 and be okay with that. Maybe get to 05, possibly, but be okay with that. And that just be as far as I get, but be all right with being able to say that I served. And I served, and I still say that I'm proud to have served. Because anybody who's proud who wants to give their life to something they believe in, I believe there's pride in that. Still to this day, if I have to do a funeral for somebody and they are somebody who was a former service member, I'm gonna be the first person. Right? And be sharp out of respect. Promise you. I'll be the first person. Because I respect the fact that somebody would give their life for that which they believe in. I respect it. But I'm saying all that to say, people don't comprehend like there's slavery in it. And you're so worried about being right, not being righteous. That's why it's hard to deal with the person when I try to tell them, like, you're not even in the country. You're in a corporation. Your state is a country. That's why you're the people of New York, the people of California. But when they talk about the people of the United States, that's not a real people, because the United States is not a nation. You can't be a people without being part of a nation. Look at the law, 28 USC 300215 A, B, and C. Subsection A, that's United States code. That's United States law. Subsection A says the United States is a corporation. Subsection B says that it's a board. That's why you have a president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, all these cabinets members, all the people in Congress, stuff like that. They're part of a board, right? And then after that, what do you have? You have 28 USC 300215C, which tells you that it's publicly traded. You're not in an actual country. You're in a corporation. But you keep participating in country activities as if you're not in a corporation. But that's what happens to you anyways. Have you ever realized when you go to your corporate job, you have to do exactly what the corporation says? You have to look at the corporation's rules. You have to follow the corporation's rules when it comes to safety. You have to make sure you post things that are not going to be detrimental to the corporation. You're doing the same thing. And you have no rights. Freedom of speech is not something that's in the corporation. See, this is when you have to realize true freedom of speech is not really going to happen until you're doing stuff that's private. That's why I have to be careful what word uses I use on here. Even though I believe I should be able to use multiple words and stuff like that, when I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, podcast, well, the podcast is something different. We can do more stuff on the podcast. But every single one that I go to, I have to read what their regulations, and I have to see what is it that I'm allowed to do on these platforms, because this is not a public, or this is not a private platform. Just because it has my name on it doesn't mean this is a private platform. This is a public platform. It means that somebody else is governing it. Or you could look at it like this. It's a private platform, but I'm not the private owner of it. So since I don't own this private corporation that I'm on in front of you, then that means that I have to realize what the owners say you're allowed to do in it, and I have to obey. Because that is what we call law. As much as everybody wants you to go away from law, it's law that protects your rights. So if I come on here, I learn their laws better than they do, so that when they try, this is why we have, if you're on TikTok, you have Kofi_43. And if you look, we have Kofi_40, Kofi_42, Kofi_43, Kofi_44. Why? Because they kept taking down platforms, but they could never get rid of us. Why? Because we always adhere to the law. And we knew, as the Bible declares in Matthew chapter 5, verse 20, we knew the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, or we knew it better than the people who are over it and the people who write out the law. You have to know the law better than them. How do you fight the oppressor? First and foremost, be private concerning the oppressor. Stop trying to have a public relationship with them and be private from them. You might have to be in their system, but stop being of it. And then secondly, you got to make sure that in your privacy that you are able to start using the word of Yah, that the word of Yah would take care of you and your people, that you would be able to gentrify your people. Before you gentrify your city, gentrify your people. If your people are gentrified, then your city's going to be gentrified. Did you catch that? If your people are gentrified, that means your city will look like you. Problem is that your people have been gentrified by others. So we look for people that would be like, man, ain't he clean? Look at that suit he got on. But a suit and tie is European. I hold on to my father's last name, but in where you come from, you don't have last names. When I get married, she's going to take on my last name, but in our culture, we don't care about her having to have your last name. She's your wife. She's going to be one with you no matter if she got your last name or not. She's going to carry your child, whether her name is changed officially on paper or not. That's somebody else's stuff trying to control people. Who cares if she has your last name? Matter of fact, there was a time, once again, she wouldn't have had a last name. The only names that you want to talk that y'all are close to what you call surnames that we had is that you would just be able to say, well, this person came from this person, who came from this person, who came from this person, or this person came from this person from this city. But we didn't have last names. Now we just want as many names, just like you want as many titles as possible. It's not about that. We got to find out who's listening. Anyway, prayerfully, you got something out of today. We'll be back on to continue the series tomorrow. Thank you for being on. Praise y'all for your presence. We appreciate you. Hopefully you got something. We're going to be doing this series for a little while. I don't know how long, but it's called Who's Listening. And this is going to be on our playlist on YouTube, so you can go there and look. Praise y'all. Prayerfully, those of you who have been listening to Sister Judith, you got your homework assignment from last Friday. You can follow her if you haven't done so already. Judith Lewis 56, JUDITHLEWIS 56 on TikTok. She's getting close to being able to go live, so she might be able to start going live on her platform. So we're excited about that. Until that happens, though, we'll still be in order and be ready for if we need to be on YouTube. But if she can go live, then we're excited to direct you guys to watch her live on TikTok. So we're excited about that as she's teaching us about raw food diet and some things we can do to make ourselves better. And we thank you guys. I got to get ready to get on the road, so I'm gonna take myself a little nap. We will do our shout out if you've never done a shout out with us before on TikTok. It's something that we think that you'll enjoy. It also gives you some more information about things that we do around the diaspora to help. And don't forget, those of you who have class, I'll try to reach out to those who have recently just filled out the forms, and we'll try to get you the information. You should all get Google Calendar invites, at least for today's classes, but every day you should get a Google Calendar invite for the class that you're taking. So today we're at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So at 7:45 p.m. Eastern New York time, I will be on the live session. Or I'll be on, we'll do our live session in the evening. We do that on Kofi_42, and we'll be on YouTube as well at 8:30 p.m. Eastern New York time. We'll have our first session for Sovereignty 1 class. At 9:15 p.m. Eastern New York time, we'll have our first session for Sovereignty 2 class. Amen. And if you need to fill out the form or need more information, let us know. You can text us, email us. If you're on TikTok, you'll get the information during the shout out. So just stick around for a hot second. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can get in touch with us through what's in the description with the video. If you're listening to the podcast, or if you want to check out stuff on the podcast, there's information on the number you can text, or place you can email us, or website information where you can go and get more information there as well and sign up. Okay. But I'm going to double check that sometime this afternoon. And I thank you all for being on. I really do. I appreciate you. I hope your day goes fantastic. I hope you continue to do great, marvelous, majestic, and mighty things. And I'm just excited to play a small part in it if I've been able to. So thank you guys again. We appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and take my leave. Hopefully you guys are able to do the same. And no matter what you're doing from this point on today, I just want to say that I appreciate you. We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And that's all I have. Thank you again. We appreciate you. We honor you guys. Take care of yourselves. Be safe out there in your travels. Be safe out there in how you deal with others. Be safe out there in the spiritual walk that you have, because there's somebody out there that doesn't want you to obtain what Yah has for you. But we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much. And we thank you again. We honor all of you guys. And we'll tell you how to do the shout out on TikTok. If you're on Facebook and YouTube, you want to come over to the shout out, feel free. If you're on TikTok, if you want to stick around, get some more information on things that we do as a community, because for us, it's not just virtual, this is reality. So if you want to figure out things that we do to help one another, bless one another, and be around each other, to support one another, feel free to check us out in a little bit. Okay. But we thank you guys. We appreciate you. We honor the of you, even if you're not living inside that kingdom or queendom yet. We appreciate the potential king, queen in each and every one of you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, Yasha'Al, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, in you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace. For those of you that are still on TikTok, we're going to explain to you briefly how the shout out works, and you'll see it pretty quickly, and hopefully you'll enjoy it.